Chapter 298. The first voice came from the house under the tree at the edge of the snow plains, and it came from the ghostly claw that stretched out from the sky. The second voice came from Tion Siezi. You're right. Damn it. Are you kids done messing around? Tion Siezi wore a long white robe and a black mask over his head. Only his eyes and mouth were exposed, and he looked very strange. At the same time he spoke, the ghostly claw that was about to seize his second senior brother did not stop. Instead, it became even faster and charged towards second senior brother in an instant. However, right at the moment it closed in, second senior brother did not move. Instead, a ball of black smoke suddenly appeared out of nowhere before him. That black smoke might seem the same as second senior brother's, but in truth, it was completely different. As that black smoke gathered together, a man walked out from within it. That man was completely black, and he was about 20 feet tall. He stood before second senior brother like a giant, and with a ferocious smile on his lips, he threw a punch towards the ghostly claw that was charging towards him. That person was one of the 300 slaves eldest senior brother had sent. He was bloodthirsty in the past, and he pursued slaughter madly. At that moment, when he attacked, he immediately crashed into the ghostly claw. With a shocking bang, the ghostly claw was forced several dozens of feet back, but the man also shuddered and coughed up a mouthful of blood. However, even though he coughed up blood, he did not become dispirited. Instead, he became even more excited. He lifted his head and roared at the sky before he charged towards the ghostly claw. As he moved forward, he lifted his right hand and struck his chest. Ninely Tribe's relic, Blood Abyss Forbidden Curse. With that strike, his body was torn into pieces in an extremely bizarre manner. His arms, legs, head, and torso were torn apart in an instant and turned into several wisps of black smoke. As they moved forward, they gathered together to form a black vortex. Low growls came from within that vortex. That voice sounded as if it had come from the depths of hell, and it was filled with a madness and desire to slaughter all life. As it closed in on the phantom claw, a blood-red hand shot out from the depths of the vortex. That hand had no skin, only flesh and blood. Countless runes were branded on it, and it grabbed the phantom claw and yanked. The two different hands collided in midair, and the most powerful force erupted from each other. Booming sounds rang out, and a scream of pain reverberated in the air. The ghostly claw was torn apart, and the severed part was dragged into the vortex. At the same time, the vortex trembled, and crunching sounds came from within. Then, it turned back into black smoke, and as it gathered together, it turned into the man's body once more. The burly man coughed out a large mouthful of blood. As he laughed madly, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and wiped it on his chest. Tion Siezi, what is the meaning of this? The ghostly arm that had lost its arm quickly disappeared into the night. At the same time, a furious voice came from the house at the edge of the ice field. Second, come down. The hooded Tion Siezi swayed his body and lifted his head to look at Su Ming's second senior brother. Second senior brother's face was calm. He descended slowly and stood beside Su Ming before he bowed respectfully towards Tion Siezi. You too. The boss sent you here, right? Come down as well. The pitch-black man glared at Tion Siezi with an unruly look in his eyes, but as if he had thought of something, that look immediately turned into obedience. With one move, he stood beside Tion Siezi. Master! Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he spoke in a low voice. Shut up. Tion Siezi glared at them and pointed at Su Ming, his second senior brother, and the pitch-black man. Anger appeared on his face, and that anger did not seem to be fake. It was genuine anger. Look at what you've done. You've become bold, haven't you? Are you done? As Tion Siezi was lecturing his disciples, the old voice came once again from the house at the edge of the ice field. Tion Siezi, you must give Phantom Dei's tribe an explanation for this. Tion Siezi did not turn his head back to bother with them. Instead, he glared at Su Ming and the others. That angry look on his face made Su Ming instinctively look at his second senior brother beside him. Second senior brother lowered his head and did not say a word. Is there anyone who does this? Tell me, is there anyone who does this? Running into someone else's tribe and starting a fight? Is that fun? Come on, tell me, haven't you had enough? Darn it, I've been following you all the way here, and I can't stand it anymore, Tian Xiezi roared. Are you messing around? Are you trying to kill someone? Are you trying to invade someone else's tribe? Is there anyone who invades like this? You don't even have the slightest bit of grandeur. You're pissing me off. Just watch. I'll teach you what it means to invade a tribe and what it means to be arrogant. Tian Xiezi's anger did not subside. Instead, his voice grew louder as he spoke, and he looked as if he was exasperated that Tian Xiezi had not lived up to his expectations. Tian Xiezi, a voice that was not any less angry than Tian Xiezi's, came from the house in the ice field. Who? Who are you calling? I'm not that wise, valiant, handsome, unrestrained, innately extraordinary, unrivaled in cultivation base, tall and sturdy. What's more, extremely intelligent, sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, etc., etc. Tian Xiezi immediately turned his head to look at the house off in the distance, patting his chest proudly. Which eye of yours thinks that I look like Tian Xiezi? It's a pity. I'm really not Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi blinked and quickly said, Enough, Tian Xiezi. You and your disciples have come to Phantom Deus. Before the old voice could finish speaking, a shrill roar that was several times louder than his own came from Tian Xiezi's mouth. I'm not Tian Xiezi. I'm really not Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi's expression was nervous. As he shouted, he took a step forward and grabbed a Phantom Deus tribe member who was kneeling before the house. He placed him in front of him as if he was carrying a small beast, and with bloodshot eyes, he stared at the tribe member who was so terrified that he was dumbfounded. Tell me, am I Tian Xiezi? The Phantom Deus tribe member trembled and quickly shook his head. A smile immediately appeared on Tian Xiezi's face, and he tossed him to the side. Tian Xiezi, you're going too far. A furious roar could be heard from within the house. The tree outside suddenly began to twist and distort in a bizarre fashion. All of the black leaves on the tree began to fall off. As they floated in the air, they transformed into 18 ghosts that looked like children. Vicious expressions could be seen on their faces as they opened their mouths, as if they could split their heads off. They transformed into a thick black mist that shot toward Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi widened his eyes, and there was also anger within them. I'm not Tian Xiezi. Damn it, I'm really not Tian Xiezi. As he spoke, he took a step forward, and just as he was about to rush towards the 18 phantoms, he suddenly stopped and turned his head around to glare at Su Ming and the others. What are you doing? Attack together. Why don't you let me do it myself? A glint appeared in second senior brother's eyes, and he was the first to rush out. He was so quick that he surpassed Tian Xiezi in an instant. A dark smile appeared on his lips, and there was an aloof look in his eyes. The second to rush out was the man in black. There was a cruel look on his face, and as he let out strange howls, he charged forward like a gust of black wind. Su Ming might have been the last to walk out, but with his speed, he only needed one step to arrive at the front. The divine general armor surrounded his body, and Han Mountain Bell chimes reverberated in the air. Due to his origin lightning, the black sky suddenly rumbled with thunder. Within Su Ming's body was his origin vessel. It was a small, strange fragment that was formed after he refined lightning in the past. At that moment, it was shining with a lightning light that no one else could see. It spread through Su Ming's body, causing bolts of lightning to spread outwards with Su Ming as the center. Tian Xiezi grinned and lifted his right hand to swing it forward. Immediately, a wave of fog appeared out of nowhere before him. That fog tumbled about like a huge wave that surged into the sky. It charged forward, and wherever it went, all the ice houses would explode. Some of the tribe members who could not dodge in time were swept into the white fog with terrified cries. As it moved forward, the white fog turned into a gigantic ball of fog that was several hundreds of feet in size. As it moved forward, it charged towards the house at the edge of the snow plains. The instant the gigantic ball of fog closed in on the house, an old man with white hair, suddenly walked out. The instant he pressed his palm against the ball of fog, Tianxiazi's body disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already within the fog, and he hurled his fist towards the old man. I'm not Tianxiazi. One punch. I'm really not Tianxiazi. Another punch. Darn it, I won't admit it even if I am. Another punch. Booming sounds reverberated in the air. The white-haired old man's face was filled with rage. He tried to fight back, but his body was continuously forced back. When Tianxiazi's punch landed, the house exploded with a bang. Once it shattered into pieces, the white-haired old man's body was pushed to the edge of the cliff in the snow plains by Tianxiazi's punches. Then, with one final low growl, Tianxiazi threw the old man out of the snow plains with another punch. Third, fourth, did you see that? If you don't destroy the house when you kill someone, do you think you're breaking into the tribe? That's just a joke. This is the real deal. A prideful look appeared on Tianxiazi's face. He turned his head around and cast a glance at Su Ming and the others, who were fighting against the 18 Phantom Shadow children. Tianxiazi, you lunatic! The white-haired old man looked incredibly pathetic in midair beyond the snow plains. His robes were torn, his hair a mess, and blood trickled out of the corners of his mouth. There was a ferocious look on his face. Lunatic? I'm not a lunatic. I'm not a lunatic. When Tianxiazi heard the old man's words, he was momentarily stunned. Nervousness instantly appeared on his face, and his eyes turned bloodshot. I'm really not a lunatic. I'm not a lunatic. Tianxiazi took a step forward and roared at the old man. There was a look of being wronged, nervousness, and terror on his face, as if his secret had been discovered. I'm not a lunatic. I've already been cured. I'm really not a lunatic. Tianxiazi charged towards the old man, as if he was hysterical. By the looks of it, he wanted to grab the old man to prove himself. The old man widened his eyes, and fear appeared in them. Su Ming smiled, wryly not too far away. He could only smile wryly. It's been a long time since I've had 4 chapters. I hope that during this 7th month, I can have more than 4 chapters. I hope that I can do it, but I need my fellow Taoists' encouragement. I need your monthly votes. Because only with your encouragement and your monthly votes will I be able to continue bursting forth with power. Please support me. Tomorrow, I will continue bursting forth with power. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 299. 4th chapter, Eruption. I long for monthly votes. I really, really long for it. This July, I beg the devil to break the 1,000,000-word count. This July, I have confidence that I will be able to write to my heart's content. This July, I want to erupt, but I need all of your encouragement. I need your monthly votes, your encouragement. Only then will I have confidence and anticipation for eruption, and not the gloominess after eruption. I need encouragement. I need monthly votes. Brothers and sisters, please give me monthly votes. Tomorrow, I will continue to erupt, and it will still be 4th chapter. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come and vote for it. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 300. As Su Ming laughed wryly, Tianxiazi took a step forward in the distance, and a layer of distorted ripples appeared in the air. His body disappeared without a trace in an instant, just like Su Ming's extreme speed. When he reappeared, he was already right before the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man's pupil shrank. He was just about to retreat when Tianxiazi's thin left hand grabbed the white-haired old man's shirt. I'm not a lunatic. I'm really not a lunatic. I'm cured. I'm all cured. Why did you call me a lunatic? Tianxiazi's eyes were bloodshot as he roared at the white-haired old man. Anyone who saw his expression would be able to tell that he looked as if his secret had been discovered. In the midst of his nervousness and fear, he was trying to explain and hide something. This scene fell into the eyes of the Phantom Deist tribe members around him. When they looked at Tianxiazi, their gazes were filled with deep terror. The white-haired old man's heart trembled. This was not the first time he saw Tianxiazi. He knew a little about the rumors surrounding him. He had not paid much attention to it, but now that he was grabbed by Tian Xiezi, he suddenly realized that there was something terrifying about this Tian Xiezi that made his heart tremble. Damn it, you already said that I'm not a lunatic. You don't believe me? You don't believe me? As Tian Xiezi roared, spittle spilled out of his mouth, causing the white-haired old man who was standing very close to him to struggle and avoid it, but it was clear that he could not do it. Tian Xiezi, you lunatic, what are you doing? This is Phantom Deus tribe. This is Northern Frontier tribe of the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky. I'm also the chief of Phantom Deus. If you dare harm me, I'll make the entire 9th summit of Freezing Sky clan die with you. The white-haired old man struggled and growled. His face was filled with anger, but hidden under that anger was fear. Why will you? Tian Xiezi was so anxious that tears seemed to have appeared in his eyes and were about to fall at any moment. He started shouting madly. Why do you have to say that I'm a lunatic? I'm not. I'm not a lunatic. I'm really cured. If you don't believe me, look at this. Tian Xiezi seemed to have thought of something. Grabbing the white-haired old man, he reached into his robe and pulled out a small wooden slip. Once Tian Xiezi brought out the wooden slip, he threw it behind him. The wooden slip turned into a ray of dark light that charged towards Su Ming, who was standing not too far away. Fourth brother, read the words out loud for me. Let them hear it. Tian Xiezi looked pleased, but he still glared fiercely at the white-haired old man in front of him. Su Ming was momentarily stunned. He took the wooden slip, and once he lowered his head to look at it, a strange expression immediately appeared on his face. Read it, Tian Xiezi said unhappily. Air. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before his voice echoed in the air. The Western Region branch of the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Xiezi isn't a lunatic and admits that he's already cured. Su Ming blinked and lifted his head to look at Tian Xiezi with a wry smile. Tian Xiezi's expression was filled with smugness. He stared at the white-haired old man and roared in an incredibly arrogant manner. How about it? This is proof. Do you see it? This is proof from the Western Region of Freezing Sky. Fourth, flip it over. There's more at the back. Continue reading. Su Ming flipped the wooden slip over and looked at the words at the back. He shook his head with a wry smile, and his voice echoed in the air once again. The Eastern Region branch of the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Xiezi isn't a lunatic and admits that he's already cured. The Southern Wastelands branch of the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Xiezi isn't a lunatic and admits that he's already cured. The Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Xiezi isn't a lunatic and admits that he's already cured. Once Su Ming finished reading all the words, Tian Xiezi's face became even more pleased with himself. He grabbed the stunned white-haired old man and shouted loudly, Did you hear that? I'm not a lunatic. I've already cured him. This is proof. If you don't believe me, I have more. This time, Tian Xiezi brought out most of the wooden slips from his bosom and threw them all to Su Ming. The Grass Plains tribe admits that Sir Tian Xiezi isn't a lunatic. Su Luo tribe admits that Sir Tian Xiezi has already cured him. Sky Mist City admits that Tian Xiezi isn't a lunatic. He's normal. The Great Tribe of Western Sea admits that Tian Xiezi isn't a lunatic. As Su Ming read the words, he was shocked. The words on each of the wooden slips were different. It was clear that they were written by different people. If these wooden slips were truly from different tribes, then Tian Xiezi was. Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. He saw Sky Mist City and the Great Tribe of Western Sea. As Su Ming read the words out loud, he was not the only one who was shocked. All the people around him who heard the words were stunned and looked at the smug Tian Xiezi in midair. I told you, I'm not a lunatic. Now, do you believe me? Tian Xiezi had a wronged expression on his face. Even though he was wearing a mask, it could still be seen from his words, eyes, and mouth. The white-haired old man in Tian Xiezi's grasp widened his eyes and found himself speechless for a long time. He no longer dared to say anything. He was now absolutely certain that this Tian Xiezi before him was indeed a lunatic. If he continued speaking, then there was a high possibility that he would anger Tian Xiezi. For a madman, there was nothing he couldn't do. Lunatic? He's a lunatic. If these wooden slips are real, then he's also a lunatic. A normal person would definitely not go to so many places to obtain proof that they're not crazy. If these are fake, then he's definitely a lunatic as well. The white-haired old man, the chief of Phantom Deus tribe, kept his mouth shut. Why aren't you speaking? You're looking down on me. Tian Xiezi glared at him. The moment his words left his mouth, even Su Ming felt pity for the white-haired old man. How dare you look down on me? Why you? Why are you looking down on me? Do you still think I'm a lunatic? Tian Xiezi flew into a rage. His face was filled with anxiety, and a glint that looked as if he wanted to kill the old man to silence him appeared in his eyes. Others might not be able to see the meaning behind that glint, but the white-haired old man in his grasp could see it clearly. You're going too far. I respect you so much, I even brought out evidence for you. And you still think I'm a lunatic? Tian Xiezi looked enraged and lifted his right hand as well. By the looks of it, he looked as if he wanted to strangle the white-haired old man to death. The old man widened his eyes and struggled furiously, but he had already noticed that all the cultivation base in his body seemed to have lost its power due to Tian Xiezi's grip on his neck. He could not bring out even a single bit of his power. At that moment, as Tian Xiezi lifted his right hand, the fear of death filled the white-haired old man's heart, causing terror to appear on his face. He looked as if he wanted to say something, but Tian Xiezi did not give him the chance. He seized the old man's neck and tightened his grip, causing the white-haired old man's face to instantly turn red. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He knew that if the white-haired old man died, then this matter would immediately turn into a major incident, but he was not afraid. Instead, killing intent appeared in his eyes. The instant the white-haired old man was killed by his master, he would swiftly attack and kill before the others could counterattack. Su Ming's second senior brother and the dark-skinned man had already crushed the dozen or so phantom shadows of the children. Many of them were even devoured by second senior brother. At that moment, he still looked the same as when he first appeared after dark. His entire body was exuding a freezing aura, and his face was aloof, but within that aloof gaze, there was also killing intent. Yet, just as the white-haired old man was about to be strangled to death by Tian Xiezi, and all the Phantom Deus tribe members on the ground were filled with terror and madness, and were about to counterattack, without care for anything else, an aged voice with a hint of helplessness could be heard from the heavens and earth. You're not a lunatic. You've already been cured. I, Emoshan, can prove it for you. As that voice traveled through the air and spread through the land, the white-haired old man in Tian Xizi's hands suddenly shuddered and immediately turned into an endless amount of black bugs, as if he had shattered. Those bugs tumbled backwards rapidly, and a large swarm of them flew several thousands of feet away before they gathered together to form the white-haired old man once again. There was still fear on his face, and as if he had just survived a disaster, he knelt down and worshipped the air beside him. Greetings, Elder. Thank you for saving my life. Ripples appeared in the air where the white-haired old man knelt, and an old man in black robes gradually walked out from within. That old man did not bother with Phantom Deus leader, but instead looked towards Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi. The moment he spoke, Tian Xiezi let out a cold harumph and similarly ignored Phantom Deus leader. Instead, he glared at him. I'm not Tian Xiezi. The moment Phantom Deus elder appeared, a shudder ran through Su Ming's body. He felt an indistinct pressure. That pressure made all the qi in his body feel as if it was about to freeze up. His expression also became grave, but when he heard his master's words, that pressure seemed to have disappeared in an instant. Su Ming smiled. He had a feeling that if Phantom Deus Elder continued speaking, perhaps his master would continue beating around the bush and lead him back to his previous words. Then I must have mistaken you for someone else. How should I address you? The black-robed Phantom Deus Elder smiled faintly. There was not a hint of joy or anger on his face as he spoke slowly and looked at Tian Xiezi. I am Tian Xiezi. Damn you, you don't know me? I even carried you when you were young, and you don't know me? How dare you ask me who I am? Tian Xiezi glared at him, looking as if he was enraged. Phantom Deus Elder had a resigned look on his face. As he shook his head, he wrapped his fist in his palm towards Tian Xiezi. Uncle Master, stop fooling around. I just found out about this. It's my tribe's fault. I'll bring that bastard here now. He spoke with a wry smile and lifted his right hand to swing his arm. Immediately, a person staggered out from the air beside him and was forced to kneel down with a thud. It was a man in the prime of his life. His upper body was bare, and his hair was wrapped around his neck. There was anger and unwillingness on his face, along with terror. I've been writing very slowly today, and I'm not in a good condition. I've been writing this chapter since noon. It should be because I slept with the windows open last night, and it rained heavily in the middle of the night. That's why I've been having a low fever today. I'll continue writing, and once I'm done, I'll post it. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 301. Zhuge made some random friends and was used by them. But he was the one who did this, so he must take responsibility for his actions. From now on, Zhuge is no longer a member of Phantom Deus tribe. Uncle Master, you can decide whether he lives or dies. Phantom Deus Elder's words were calm. Once he finished speaking, he cast Zhuge a glance, and a freezing glare appeared in his eyes. With a swing of his arm, Zhuge's kneeling body was immediately swept up by the wind and sent flying towards Su Ming and the others. Once he fell before them, he was picked up by the dark-skinned man with a ferocious grin. A pleased look appeared on Tian Xiezi's face. He stroked his beard and let out a fake cough. Nephew, look, Uncle Master and your senior brothers didn't hold back when they attacked. They've destroyed quite a lot of your houses. It's fine. They're just worldly possessions. We can rebuild them. Besides, I've been thinking that these houses are a little old. I'll have to thank Uncle Master for helping me clean them up. Phantom Deus Elder Emotion smiled. His expression did not change much. Is that so? Then I'm not worried. But nephew, your senior brothers injured quite a lot of people, and some of them even died. Tian Xiezi looked as if he was in a difficult position. It's fine. That's because their power isn't high enough. It has nothing to do with others. Even if they didn't die today, once we start fighting against the shamans, they'll still die there. It'll be a lesson for them. Phantom Deus Elder's expression remained the same as he spoke with a smile, as if anger could never be seen on him. Yet no matter how well this sort of person behaved, he could not hide the sinister nature in his heart. Su Ming looked at Phantom Deus Elder not too far away. He knew clearly that with this person's power, he would definitely know when he and his second senior brother arrived, and he would definitely know who they were looking for. Yet at that time, he pretended that he did not know and even allowed his tribe members to attack. Only when Su Ming and the others arrived and Tian Xiezi appeared did he have no choice but to show himself and say those words. He even handed over Zhuge. All of this was a clear sign that he was wary of his master. Perhaps this wariness was due to his hesitation and observation in the beginning, but now, as this person appeared in his attitude, it was clear that he had already made his judgment. Uncle Master, I have something else to offer to you as a token of Phantom Deus tribe's apology for what happened. As Phantom Deus Elder spoke with a smile, he brought out an item from his bosom. It was a wooden slip. He held it in his hand and drew a few strokes on it with his right hand. Once he wrote down a line of words, he handed it respectfully to Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi took it and lowered his head to look at it. He immediately beamed with joy. Not bad, not bad. In the future, if anyone calls me a madman, I'll have one more proof. Phantom Deus Elder Emotion smiled and wrapped his fist in his palm towards Tian Xiezi. I still have some matters to deal with in the clan, so I won't be seeing you off. If you have time, you can come visit us at any time. Right up to the end, he did not look at Su Ming and the others. Neither did he mention them in his words. It was as if Su Ming and the others did not exist in his eyes, or perhaps they did not have the right to make him pay attention to them. The only one he cared about was Tian Xiezi. You're too polite. It's fine, it's fine. Go back. I'll be leaving now. Tian Xiezi quickly put away the wooden slip carefully and patted his chest with a satisfied look on his face. He was just about to turn around and walk towards Su Ming to leave with him. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he took a step forward. Master, I have something to say. Huh? Fourth, what is it? Tian Xiezi looked at Su Ming. There was a smile on Phantom Deus Elder's lips, but he still ignored everyone in his eyes. Even when Su Ming spoke, he did not look at him and continued looking at Tian Xiezi. I lost a bag during the fight just now. There were 500-something golden stone coins inside, along with some other enchanted vessels. I saw a member of Phantom Deus tribe take them away. Master, please help me get them back. The moment Su Ming's words left his mouth, before Tian Xiezi could even speak, Phantom Deus Elder looked toward Su Ming. This was the first time he looked at Su Ming directly. The smile on his face instantly disappeared, but it soon returned to normal. Yet the cold glint in his eyes was clearly seen by Su Ming, who had been observing his expression all this while. There's such a thing? 500-something golden stone coins? That's a lot. Tian Xiezi widened his eyes and turned his head around to look at Phantom Deus Elder. A stern look appeared on his face. Eldest nephew, this is your fault. All right, quickly get someone to bring my disciple's bag over. Phantom Deus Elder fell silent for a moment before he waved his arm and immediately brought out a bag from his bosom. He brought out 600 golden stone coins from within. Each stone coin might not be as valuable as the one Tian Lanming gave him, but the difference was not too great. The number and value of the coins was something Su Ming had never seen before. There's no need to go through so much trouble. There are 600 golden stone coins here. Junior brother, what do you think? A smile appeared on Phantom Deus Elder's lips as he looked at Su Ming. Stone coins may be good, but this area is controlled by Northern Frontier. Sky Mist Shaman Hunt is around the corner, so they will naturally go out to buy things occasionally. If anything happens, the one who spoke was not Su Ming, but his second senior brother. His voice was not aloof, but gentle, like a spring breeze blowing past. The moment he spoke, Su Ming immediately turned his head to look at his second senior brother. At that moment, the aloof look on his second senior brother's face was gone, and he turned back into the gentle man who always liked the sun shining on his side profile and letting the light shine on his body. There was a gentle smile on his face as he nodded towards Su Ming. That handsome face, that brilliant smile, and that calm demeanor made it difficult for Su Ming to fuse his second senior brother with his previous demeanor. It was difficult for him to believe that his second senior brother had truly arrived. The moment he spoke, Phantom Deus Elder cast a glance at his second senior brother. A dark look appeared on his face for an instant before he spoke slowly. This is easy. If anything happens to you outside Freezing Sky Clan before Sky Mist Shaman Hunt, then Phantom Deus Tribe will take full responsibility. Is that so? Then I'll say it. In truth, Master, I also lost quite a lot of stone coins. Second senior brother smiled gently. Huh? You lost it too? Damn it. Why did you bring all your belongings when you came out to fight? Good. That's good. Second, write this down in the Ninth Summit's rules as well. Tian Xiezi nodded his head in satisfaction. Second senior brother looked a little embarrassed as he looked at Phantom Deus Elder, whose face had already turned dark. I didn't lose much, just 500 golden stone coins, a phantom fork, 10 enchanted vessels, and 100-something bottles of healing medicinal liquid. It's not much, it's really not much. Forget about the other miscellaneous items. I'm not stingy, so I won't take them. Fourth, what else did you lose? Second senior brother asked softly with a smile on his face as he looked at Su Ming. At that moment, Phantom Deus Elder's face became even darker. Su Ming originally thought that he had already asked for a lot of things, but when he heard his second senior brother's words, he finally understood what it meant to ask for a lot of things. I remember that I also lost 100-something ice stones. And bone solidifying grass, 3 flavored branches, dust orchid leaves. Su Ming listed out the names of dozens of herbs. and the bones of 7 transcended beasts, and the bodies of 8 transcended puppets. And, as Su Ming spoke, he found that he did not know what else he had left. Phantom Deus Elder's face was so dark that it looked as if it had turned into killing intent. He glared at Su Ming and the others coldly. The Phantom Deus tribe members around them also looked angry. Ahem, fourth, your memory isn't good. I remember that there was a phantom fork in the bag you lost. Second senior brother let out a few fake coughs by the side. Su Ming blinked and quickly said, "That's right, I remember now. There was also a phantom fork." Phantom Deus Elder was so angry that he laughed, but once he took a deep breath, he closed his eyes. After a moment, when he opened them, his eyes had calmed down and he nodded his head with a smile. "Even though I'm curious as to how you managed to put those 8 puppets' bodies in your bag, I'm also curious as to how you managed to keep the unique treasure of Phantom Deus Tribe, the Phantom Fork, in your bag. But since you threw it in Phantom Deus Tribe, then I'll give it to you." The moment Phantom Deus Elder finished speaking, he suddenly lifted his head and looked into the distance. In the distance, a strong man holding a big axe was running over quickly. As he ran, he shouted loudly at the same time, Wait, I also lost quite a lot of things." Second senior brother smiled faintly. There was a blade of grass in his palm, and at that moment, the blade of grass had already turned into ashes. He would never forget his junior brothers when there were benefits, just like how he had woken up Huzi and told him, "I lost 10,000 pots of good wine. That's all I lost. I didn't lose anything else. Give me back my wine." Huzi panted harshly as he ran to Su Ming's side and shouted loudly towards Phantom Deus Elder. There was great anticipation and desire in his eyes. Phantom Deus Elder instinctively clenched his fists. After remaining silent for a moment, he waved his arm and turned around to walk towards Phantom Deus Tribe's city beyond the snow plains. "Give it to them." His words echoed in the air, and there was a hint of anger in his voice. Yet the moment he said those words, and before he could walk far away, a thought appeared in Tian Xiezi's head. He coughed a few times and spoke to Phantom Deus Elder. Eldest nephew? Look, I'm old now, and my memory isn't that good. I suddenly remembered that I also lost quite a lot of things." Phantom Deus Elder's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. His back was turned towards the crowd, and his expression could not be seen, but they could feel a wave of anger surging into the sky. It was as if he couldn't take it any longer. However, even as his anger rose, the sound of crunching could be heard, as if someone were stepping on snow. Next, a figure emerged, wearing a violet robe that even covered his head. He slowly walked out onto the snowy plain. "I can give you everything you lost, but I want to talk to him alone." The person lifted his right hand. His arm was as dry as a skeleton, and his fingers had long fingernails. The person he was pointing at was Su Ming, who was standing not too far away from him. His voice was hoarse, and it sounded as if it had traveled through time, drifting about in the world. "Phantom equal." Tian Xiezi's expression immediately turned serious. His clothes, which had turned from white to white, seemed to show signs of changing in that instant. "Since you promised 4 chapters, then you have to do it. Only today did I know just how difficult it is to say those words. When your body is fine, it's not that difficult, but when you have a low fever, you will need to struggle and be determined to do it. I'll continue writing. Ask for recommendation votes. This vote is already gone. Ask for Demon, asking to come up and take a breath. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 302. A focused look appeared on Su Ming's face as he looked at the purple figure walking towards him from the snow plains. That person did not give him a single hint of familiarity, but the moment he lifted his right hand and pointed at him, Su Ming's heart trembled. He could not say why, but at that moment, that originally unfamiliar feeling gave him a sense of déjà vu. The moment the purple figure appeared, Phantom Deus Elder, who was about to explode in anger, instantly lost his anger. His expression became calm, and he turned around in midair, his gaze also falling on Su Ming. Tianxiazi's face was stern. His robes were showing signs of changing. They were no longer white, but were turning gray. In fact, that gray was not the end of their transformation either. A hint of purple was gradually seeping out of his robes. Sir Tianxiazi, I bear no ill will towards your disciple. I just have a few questions that I would like to ask, the person in purple said calmly, his face hidden. Phantom Deus, tribes, phantom equal. It is rumored that ever since the tribe appeared, there has never been a second phantom equal. In fact, it is rumored that when the great tribe of Freezing Sky subdued Phantom Deus tribe, the phantom equal did not attack. Now, I'd like to see just how strong you are, phantom equal. Tianxiazi's gaze was cold. At that moment, there was no longer any hint of madness in him, but a murderous aura. Sir Tianxiazi, why don't you ask your disciple whether he wants to talk to me? If he doesn't want to, I won't force him, but if he does, then I hope you won't stop him. The person in purple's voice was hoarse, but still calm. Tianxiazi looked at the person in purple, and the seriousness in his eyes grew stronger. This sort of expression rarely appeared on him, and as it grew stronger, a faint hint of fighting spirit appeared within him. He licked his lips and did not speak. Instead, he lifted his right hand slowly, and as he did so, his robes rapidly turned purple. Su Ming's second senior brother also had a serious expression on his face as he stood beside Su Ming. Even the dark-skinned man, one of the 300 slaves of eldest senior brother, had the same expression on his face. Su Ming looked at the phantom equal in purple and suddenly said, "At the same time you ask me, I can also ask you a question." "Sure," the person in purple said flatly. "Master, I'd like to talk to him." Su Ming's voice traveled forth, and Tianxiazi's right hand froze in the sky. He turned his head around and looked at Su Ming. After a moment of silence, he lowered his right hand. "Follow me." The purple-robed Phantom Deus tribe's phantom equal said hoarsely before he turned around and walked towards the edge of the snow plains behind him. Su Ming did not hesitate and walked forward. The two of them walked one after the other, and soon they arrived at the edge of the snow plains. When they stood there, they could clearly see the city that belonged to Phantom Deus tribe at the bottom of the cliff and the land that was gradually turning green behind the city. There was a moment of silence. Neither of them spoke. There were several dozens of feet between the purple-robed man and Su Ming. After a long while, he said slowly, "That's the south." Su Ming looked at the indistinct green land in the distance and fell silent. "What's your name?" The purple-robed person turned around, and the eyes hidden under the robes looked towards Su Ming. "Su Ming, what's your name?" Su Ming hesitated for a moment, then decided not to hide anything. Once he answered, he asked a question of his own. "Me? I've already forgotten. Gue Fong is my name." The purple-robed figure seemed to ponder for a moment before he shook his head and answered in a hoarse voice. "I can sense a fierce and unique presence on your body. You are not from the land of South Morning." The purple-robed figure's voice was low, but when his words fell into Su Ming's ears, he felt his heart tremble. This sentence was not a question, but a form of affirmation that did not require Su Ming's answer. "What is this?" Su Ming avoided the question and brought out a black stone from his bosom. That stone might look like that, but in truth, when Su Ming held it in his hands for the first time, it was still very soft. It was a stone shell from which the black insects had continuously crawled out. "This is Phantom Deus tribe's sacred item. With it, we can communicate with a strange world. There are countless specters there. You're not from the land of South Morning, and neither am I." The purple-robed figure mumbled. Su Ming cast the person a glance and did not speak. "Besides that unique presence, there's also something familiar about you. That familiar feeling is as if we've met before. Perhaps you've met the next phantom equal of Phantom Deus tribe before." The purple-robed figure turned around swiftly and looked into Su Ming's eyes. The phantom equal of Phantom Deus tribe isn't always alone. Once the current person dies, the next person will wake up. I've searched through the entire land of South Morning, but the next phantom equal has not appeared. I should have died many times, but every single time, I forced myself to survive and continued searching. Tell me, where did you meet that person? You know who I'm talking about. From a moment you held this sacred item in your hand and came over to ask about it, I knew that you already have an answer in your heart. If you have any questions, then tell me where he is. What's his name? He is the next phantom equal of Phantom Deus tribe. Su Ming's heart trembled. He looked at the purple-robed figure before him, and after a moment of silence, he shook his head. He's not in the land of South Morning. It's fine. Tell me where he is and his name, and I will thank you with this. The purple-robed figure said hoarsely. The purple-robed figure spoke in a hoarse voice. He lifted his withered right hand, within which appeared a tiny purple bug. The little insect was completely purple, and it was quietly lying on the withered palm of the purple-robed figure. A faint fragrance was emitted from its body, and when one smelled it, they couldn't help but feel hungry. This is violet fusion. Any ferocious beast that swallows this insect will return to its roots once. If it succeeds, then its combat abilities will increase by leaps and bounds. But if it fails, then it will die. Take this. If you run into danger during Sky Mist Shaman Hunt, then with this item, you can make any shaman tribe go mad for you. You must refine this item in your heart. That way, with just one thought, this item will die. If you don't want it, then no one can take it away. You can make a deal with it, and you won't get into trouble because of it. Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest. He originally did not believe in the purple-robed person's words, but the moment the purple insect appeared, he could clearly feel the unknown rod insect in Han Mountain Bell becoming restless, as if it wanted to rush out of Han Mountain Bell. It was as if this item's attraction to it had reached a level Su Ming could not imagine. Su Ming remained silent, but still shook his head. He could not tell whether the purple-robed person's words were true. After all, this was an important matter, and he would not speak of it easily. I'll take my leave first. Su Ming turned around and quelled the crazed restlessness of the insect in Han Mountain Bell before walking towards Tian Xiezi in the distance. I bear no ill will. I just want to know where my tribe's next phantom equal is and what his name is. It's impossible for me to walk out of the land of South Morning to search for him. I just want to use my tribe's strange ghost art to inform the strange world of ghosts and souls about his name. This will be beneficial for his growth. All the ghosts in the world will search for him and protect him. Please help me this once. The purple-robed person's voice was hoarse, but there was sincerity in it. I know I can't make you believe in my words, but I truly bear no ill will. I swear on the legacy of Phantom Deus tribe that if there is even a hint of falsehood in my words, and if I want to harm the person you mentioned, then let the legacy of Phantom Deus tribe be broken, and let Phantom Deus tribe disappear from the world. The purple-robed old man took a few steps forward, and there was a hint of anxiety in his hoarse voice. Su Ming's footsteps faltered. He could hear the determination in this person's words. In silence, Su Ming hesitated for a moment. This is my oath. I, the god of Phantom Deus, will bear witness to it. The purple-robed person knelt on one knee on the ground, lifted his hands, and lowered his head towards Su Ming. His kneeling down made the expressions of all those who saw it in the distance change. Phantom Deus Elder even focused his gaze on the purple-robed person, but he did not get closer. Tian Xiezi frowned and looked at the purple-robed person, as if he had understood something. Su Ming turned his head around and looked at the purple-robed person kneeling on the ground. After a long while, this person's oath and actions did not seem fake, and the fact that he swore on the name of his own tribe was enough to tell that there was something wrong with him. Alliance of the Western Region, Lei Chun. Su Ming said softly. Once he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards Tian Xiezi. The moment he turned around, the purple-robed person lifted his head, and gratitude appeared in the eyes hidden under his robes. He lifted his right hand and swung it, and the purple insect charged towards Su Ming. Su Ming caught it. Thank you. Don't worry, there is not a hint of falsehood in my words. Once the purple-robed person finished speaking, he bowed deeply towards Su Ming once again, then turned around and charged down the snow plains. Su Ming left with his second senior brother, Huzi, Tianxiezi, and the dark-skinned man. They left Northern Frontier Tribe and found by Su outside. They turned into long arcs and brought Zhuagu and their rewards back to the ninth summit. Once they left, Phantom Deus Elder's face turned incredibly dark. He turned around and charged down the snow plains. Besides being wary of Tianxiezi, there was another reason why he had compromised so many times. It was because of the Phantom Equal's request. He wanted to ask the Phantom Equal just what was the reason behind this. Phantom Deus City was located under the snow plains. There was a tall tower within it, and it was completely purple in color. At the highest point of the tower was a purple-robed figure sitting cross-legged there. There was a purple bowl before him, and there was some purple-colored blood in the bowl. In the Alliance of the Western Region, in the name of Lei Chun, as the current Phantom Equal of Phantom Deus Tribe, I call upon you, my scion. Awaken, Lei Chun, Lei Chun. As he spoke, he lifted his right hand abruptly. The tip of his index finger shattered, revealing the bloody mess underneath. He pressed it against the purple blood in the stone bowl before him. Lei Chun, let me see you. The purple-robed person let out a loud roar. The moment his roar reverberated in the air, the purple-robed person suddenly started trembling violently. His robes instantly tore apart, revealing an ordinary face that was filled with age. His eyes bulged out, and there was disbelief within them. He saw, this is the third chapter. Truth be told, once I finished writing this chapter, there was a voice in my heart telling me not to continue. The third chapter is enough. If worst comes to worst, I'll just continue with the third chapter tomorrow. But I said yesterday, the fourth chapter, truth be told, I'm starting to regret being so impulsive. I'll continue writing. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 303. Just at this moment, the stone bowl suddenly collapsed, and the small amount of blood inside also dissipated. The old man's body trembled, and he coughed out a large mouthful of blood. With a bang, he was sent flying by an invisible force and slammed into the wall. It was also at that moment that the door to the top floor of the tower was pushed open. Phantom Deus Elder walked in with a dark look on his face, but when he saw the mess in the place, he could not help but be stunned. How could this be? This is... The old man who fell against the wall had a bewildered look on his face. There was fear in his eyes as he mumbled nonstop. What happened? Phantom Deus Elder walked over and helped the bewildered old man up before he immediately asked, I'm searching for the next Phantom Equal. My ritual wasn't wrong, and I did indeed see it, but what I saw was... The old man shuddered and lifted his head swiftly to grab Phantom Deus Elder's shoulder. As his breathing quickened, he was no longer bewildered, but clear-headed. Understand now. Remember this. Don't provoke that person called Su Ming. Absolutely do not provoke that person. I saw something I shouldn't have seen. I saw it. The old man held onto Phantom Deus Elder tightly, and his breathing quickened as he spoke with great difficulty. I can't tell you what I saw, but you must remember this. Don't provoke him. He is... The old man's body started convulsing, and he pushed away the stunned Phantom Deus Elder. He tightened his grip around his own neck, and madness appeared in his eyes. A presence that made Phantom Deus Elder tremble gathered in the house. The strength of that presence made Phantom Deus Elder's skin crawl. He could not move his body, and his pupils shrank. Everything he saw before him surpassed his knowledge and imagination, causing him to seem as if he had forgotten to breathe. He saw that there was a semi-transparent hand before the old Gui Fong. That hand was firmly gripping the Gui Fong's neck and lifting him up from the ground. Gradually, as the Gui Fong struggled, he seemed to have lost all his cultivation. He was like an ordinary old man, and he could not resist at all. However, Emo Shan knew that he was not the strongest person in Phantom Deus Tribe. The true strongest person was the Phantom Equal. Even though the Gui Fong was already in his twilight years, to be slowly killed like a mortal, The cultivation required was something Mo Shan could not imagine. His mind trembled as he stared blankly at what was happening. Slowly, he saw a translucent man wearing an emperor's robe appear in front of the phantom equal. The man's appearance did not cause the wind to rise or the clouds to surge, nor did it cause the sky to change colors. However, a suffocating terror washed over Mo Shan. At this moment, he was like an ant, and this translucent man wearing an emperor's robe and crown could crush him with just a glance. Only a few breaths of time had passed, but to Mo Shan, these few breaths of time felt like an eternity. He watched the translucent figure snap the phantom equal's neck. After the figure let go, it seemed to look at him. This gaze caused Mo Shan's mind to rumble, and his vision to go blank. He didn't know how much time had passed, but when he came to his senses, the house was completely silent. There was not a single sound. Only the corpse on the ground that had already turned stiff seemed to tell the truth of what had happened. Mo Shan trembled as he looked at the phantom equal's corpse. The phantom equal's final words echoed in his head. I saw something I shouldn't have seen. Remember this. Do not ever provoke that person called Su Ming. Do not provoke him. Phantom Deus Elder, Mo Shan, shuddered and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He knew that he would never be able to forget the moment before the phantom equal died and the gaze the semi-transparent figure with the crown had directed towards him. What did he see? Who is he? The two of them represented two different people. Mo Shan fell silent. In his silence, he did not notice that there was a light breeze blowing past the tall tower in Phantom Deus City under the snow plains. That wind came from freezing sky. There were very few rumors in the world that did not spread, and there were also very few rumors that did not spread. The matter of the Ninth Summit moving out together and charging into Northern Frontier tribe gradually spread out within a short period of time. Some people were shocked, some were angry, some did not believe it, and some laughed at it. Yet no matter what, there was one more rumor among the many rumors about the Ninth Summit over the years. Their lives were still the same. Eldest senior brother isolated himself in isolation. Second senior brother planted his plants. During the day, he would let the sun shine on the side of his face and smile gently. And at night, he would be like a ghost searching for the darkness of the night. As for Hu Zi, with the 10,000 pots of wine, he was so happy that he could only grin like an idiot and lead a befuddled life. In fact, it had been a few days since he last did his favorite act of peeping. As for Su Ming, he was still copying the second style of the extreme speed art. He controlled the divine general armor and refined his body, making the final preparations for Sky Miss Shaman Hunt. Ziche's injuries had already turned for the better. As for Zhuge, Su Ming had Ziche send his head to the first summit to see Ma Xian's cave abode. In truth, Su Ming still had a question in his mind. That question was not directed towards Sima Xian, but towards his second senior brother. However, he did not ask. Perhaps his second senior brother had his own secrets and could not help Ziche heal his injuries beforehand. Bai Su did not search for Su Ming for half a month after she returned, which was a rare sight. It was as if she had run into something that she was hesitating about and needed some time to think about it clearly. When she returned half a month later, Su Ming saw even more of Bai Ling's marks on her body. Bai Su returned to her usual unruly and willful personality. Sometimes she would want to tease Su Ming, but every single time, the price she would have to pay was to hang upside down in midair, something she was already used to doing. Time passed by slowly like that, and there were less than 2 months left until the Sky Miss Shaman Hunt. During the final 2 months, even Su Ming, who did not leave the mountain, could feel an oppressive feeling enveloping Freezing Sky Clan. It was like the silence before the storm. On this day, when Ziche returned, he brought an invitation to Su Ming. That invitation was given to him by an auction organized by the largest square nearby. The auction this time would be the largest one held within the territory of Freezing Sky Clan before the war. The organizer was not from the great tribe of Freezing Sky, but Western Sea Clan. This was a tradition that would only appear during the Great War that occurred once a century. It was just like how there were quite a number of people in Western Sea Clan who would also receive invitations to a large-scale auction organized by Freezing Sky Clan nearby. Su Ming was originally not too interested in this sort of auction until he saw an item that made his heart pound in excitement among the items listed on the invitation. It was a complete cauldron used to create medicinal pills. There are 2,000 words in this chapter. I really can't write anymore. I'm so dizzy that I'm muddled, but I've finished 4 chapters. Even if I'm short of 1,000 words, I've still finished 4 chapters. I've done my best. It's been a total of 10 hours. I really want your monthly votes. I really want it. To be continued. If you like this work, please come come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 304. I crave for recommendation votes. When an author writes, he or she doesn't pursue it. Since he or she has chosen to pursue it, I might as well tell everyone loudly. I need recommendation votes. I need them every day. I don't want to lie and say that I can give them to others and leave one for Chioma. What I desire in my heart is to give all the recommendation votes to Chioma. Of course, this is my desire. You can choose not to give it to me, but I can't not say it. It's the same for monthly votes. I have desires, and my desires are your votes. I know your desire is to see more words, to see better quality. I will do it. Then, let's exchange. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to cast recommendation votes and monthly votes. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 305. The auction this time would be held 5 days later. The scale of the auction was so great that not only would the people from Freezing Sky Clan attend, even some of the nobles in the great tribe of Freezing Sky would send their people over. The other tribes nearby, and even some people from further places also knew about the grand auction that was held once a century. Most of them had already started their journey and were rushing over. Most of the people who came were here to buy items, but there were also quite a few who came from all directions intending to sell their items to the auction house. Su Ming took the invitation and swept his gaze across the cauldron. He forced down the thump in his heart and closed his eyes to think for a moment before handing the invitation to Ziche. We'll depart 3 days later. Ziche quickly obeyed and took the invitation respectfully before placing it in his bosom. His injuries had already healed, and he had also learned from Huzi about everything the Ninth Summit had done for him after he was injured. This made him feel touched. It was especially so after he was chased out of the Second Summit. The Ninth Summit's actions warmed Ziche's heart, and he no longer cared about his status as a servant. To him, the Ninth Summit was already the place where he could stay. Besides, the shackles on his body had also been broken once he recovered. He could be said to be free now, but he was still willing to stay in the Ninth Summit and stay by Su Ming's side. He was already used to this sort of life and did not feel uncomfortable about it. He understood Su Ming's strength incredibly well. The small interactions he had with Su Ming had made Ziche admire Su Ming deeply. Once he put away the invitation, Ziche hesitated for a moment. Uncle Master, you already have 16 ice hoops on your body. I think it's not good if your body can't handle the weight if you force it on yourself. Su Ming cast Ziche a glance, and a smile appeared on his face. It's fine. Ziche nodded. It was not convenient for him to say it out loud. When he saw that Su Ming clearly understood this, he bowed and left. Su Ming sat cross-legged on the platform outside his cave abode. He had been sitting there for a long time and had never gotten up. It was the same even when the sun rose and set. It was not that he did not want to get up, but the combined weight of the 16 ice hoops on his legs was as heavy as a mountain on his body. In the beginning, he even felt as if his legs and upper body were being torn apart. It was only after a few days that he gradually adapted to it, but it was still a little difficult for him to stand up. As he sat down, Su Ming lifted his right hand, and with a swing of his arm, a black fork that was only 3 inches big appeared on his palm. The fork was like a trident. Its entire body was pitch black, and its tip was faintly glowing. If one stared at it for a long time, one would be able to hear the faint howling of ghosts. Phantom fork. Su Ming mumbled as he stared at it. This was one of the items Su Ming had lost due to his second senior brother's reminder when he was still in Phantom Deish tribe. Now he had regained it. If Su Ming had wanted to study it himself, he would have needed some time to figure it out. However, with his second senior brother's help, the Phantom fork had already become connected to Su Ming as if it had fused with him, allowing him to control it as he pleased. Su Ming's divine sense had also turned into a brand and was carving it layer by layer, causing his Phantom fork to not lose out to those from Phantom Deish tribe when he used it. Ta, Chi. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he let out 3 strange sounds. The moment those 3 sounds appeared, black fog instantly spread out from the Phantom fork in his hand. That black fog instantly grew thicker and filled Su Ming's palm. It grew bigger and eventually spread to an area of several hundreds of feet. As it floated in midair, that black fog tumbled about and gradually gathered together to form a gigantic figure. That figure seemed to have an endless amount of strength. Its face was indistinct, and its entire body was formed by black fog. It looked like a malicious spirit, but in truth, this thing was not a spirit. In fact, it did not even possess life. It was a puppet. It was a phantom puppet created by Phantom Deish tribe using a unique method. It could change its form in an unpredictable manner and turn into any form it wanted. It could even imitate the person's presence perfectly. At that moment, the gigantic phantom puppet landed on the platform and lifted its thick arms to grab Su Ming. Its arms tightened, and Su Ming's body, which could not move, was lifted from the ground and placed on its shoulders slowly. Right till the end, Su Ming did not say a single word. He was the one controlling the puppet. He only needed to gather his divine sense around it to make it move, just like his own body. The gigantic puppet carried Su Ming on its shoulders and took huge strides forward. With each step it took, the layer of ice on the platform would let out muffled booms. Clearly, Su Ming's weight at that moment was extraordinary. As the puppet moved forward, it gradually brought Su Ming into its cave abode. The puppet could change its size at will. As it moved forward, its body automatically shrank by a large margin, causing it to be able to pass through the door of the cave abode while carrying Su Ming. The puppet carried Su Ming to the place in the cave abode specially made for Yifeng. Over there, Su Ming's eyes sparkled. Yifeng's fusion with the wings of the moon had already reached its final stage. If he could go through this and succeed, then the Yifeng that appeared once again would be of great help to Su Ming during his trip to the land of the shamans. At that moment, Yifeng's entire body was surrounded by a layer of blood mist. His body could not be seen clearly. That blood mist would occasionally tumble about, and it looked incredibly bizarre. After observing it for a moment, the puppet under Su Ming brought him back a few steps and brought him to another stone chamber in the cave. The moment they arrived, a medicinal fragrance wafted into their nostrils. The stone chamber was huge, and the ground inside was not made of ice, but was made of soil. Ziche had brought this soil back, according to Su Ming's orders from a faraway place. Once he placed it in this place, it allowed Su Ming to plant the large amount of herbs he had lost from Phantom Deish tribe in this place. The herbs in this place should not have been able to survive, but with his second senior brother's help, through a strange method, he managed to make these herbs grow on the rootless soil. However, the prerequisite was that there was a large amount of golden stone coins filled with spiritual aura placed under the soil. I'll have to make a lot of preparations for my trip to the land of the shamans. After all, this trip won't be short. A pensive look appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He had gone to the land of the shamans before, and even though it had only been for a few days, it was difficult for him to forget the hardships he had gone through during those few days. Once he entered the land of the shamans and fell into that kind of situation once again, then the preparations he made at this moment would become the source of his survival. In silence, the puppet under him took a huge step forward. As rumbling sounds reverberated in the air, it walked towards another stone chamber. There were 7 different beast skeletons placed on the ground in that stone chamber. Each of the beast skeletons exuded a powerful pressure. These beast skeletons belonged to ferocious beasts that were equivalent to those in the transcendence realm when they were alive. At that moment, their bones were covered in grass. It had been some time since Su Ming planted them there. Beside the beast skeletons were 7 human corpses. There are no signs of decay on their bodies. They might look like dead people, but if anyone took a closer look, they would be able to see faint signs of life within their bodies. These 7 people did not have berserker marks. There were a large number of pictures carved on their faces, and they looked rather complicated. If anyone had never seen a shaman before, they might think that these 7 people were members of a unique tribe. However, when Su Ming had taken away these 7 corpses from Phantom Dea's tribe, he could tell with just one glance that they were shamans. He had no idea how they had been captured by Phantom Dea's tribe. I just need to nourish them for another month, and then I can create spirit plunder. If I can create 3 spirit plunder in one go, then I can open up another door in that strange dimension and obtain a new method to create medicinal pills. It's a pity that I still haven't obtained enough materials for the welcoming of deities. Based on my understanding of that strange dimension, the more sacrifices it requires, the lower the quality of the medicinal pills, and vice versa, the higher the quality. Among the different methods to create medicinal pills, the welcoming of deities is the only one that doesn't require any sacrifices. Su Ming remembered the method to create the welcoming of deities when he entered the strange dimension when he was in Dark Mountain and saw it. The 9th leg of the spider, the tail scale of the strange snake, the small black humanoid. I've only obtained one of them. Su Ming frowned. As the puppet beneath him moved forward, he left the cave abode and returned to the platform. Once he placed the puppet down, Su Ming continued sitting cross-legged on the platform. A glint appeared in his eyes. When he lifted his right hand, a small purple insect appeared on his palm. That insect's name was Purple Harmony, and it was the gift from Phantom Dea's Phantom Equal. I wonder what would happen if my insect swallowed Purple Harmony. Su Ming hesitated for a moment. He did not try it recklessly. He remembered the Phantom Equal saying that if he failed, then the ferocious beast that swallowed Purple Harmony would die a violent death. Unless it was absolutely necessary, and Su Ming did not have a lot of confidence, he did not want to try this sort of risky thing. 3 days passed by quickly as Su Ming observed he phoned and the materials he prepared to create spirit plunder. The auction this time attracted a lot of attention from the 9 summits on the Great Plains of Freezing Sky Clan. Quite a number of people had already left in groups to rush towards the auction. There were also some who left alone. Hu Zi was living his life in a drunken stupor on the 9th summit. He did not pay any attention to this. As for his second senior brother, he was still planting his plants and would occasionally hang around Ziyin during the day. Their eldest senior brother was still in isolation. Su Ming also learned that the black man was his eldest senior brother's servant. He had some guesses about his eldest senior brother's identity because of this. As for Tian Xiezi, he was rarely seen. Even if he did, he would be dressed in robes of different colors and would let out a loud roar in the morning before flying off in different directions. On the 4th morning, the puppet that was the phantom fork turned into a gigantic black beast. Su Ming sat on its back with Zi Che by his side respectfully. They were about to leave the 9th summit. However, with Baisu's arrival, there was another person added to their party. The 3 of them turned into a long, black arc on the phantom puppet's body and swiftly left the 9th summit, charging towards the auction in the sky. As they charged forward, they ran into some other Freezing Sky Clan disciples who were also heading there. These people stared at the black beast puppet that was 300-something feet tall under Su Ming with dumbfounded expressions. When they saw Zi Che and Su Ming sitting on it, they quickly avoided them. I'm dispirited. 2 days of exploding, and this damn fever and dizziness have made me completely dispirited. I'm thankful that I didn't act rashly yesterday and say that I would continue exploding today, or else I would have crashed my head into a wall in regret. I asked for leave today, and there's only 1 chapter left. Even if I don't say that I'll make it up, you know that I will. I need monthly votes and recommendation votes. My attitude is very proper. With such a proper attitude, touching words, and the 2 pieces of cold stickers that my daughter uses to heat up her body. How could you not vote? I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 306. The puppet beast was completely black and had no fur. It looked like a giant with its limbs hanging down. It ran forward like a wild beast on the ground. It was precisely because of its strange appearance that all the people who ran into it would cast a sidelong glance at it and avoid it. During this period of time, the matter of the Ninth Summit charging into Northern Frontier Tribe had already become one of the many rumors in the Ninth Summit. Even though there were still quite a number of people who did not believe it, but this matter concerned Northern Frontier Tribe's reputation. However, Northern Frontier Tribe had remained silent about this rumor, and gradually, the credibility of this rumor increased. It was especially so for those who were acquainted with people in Northern Frontier Tribe. Once they asked around and obtained an answer that shocked them, their attitude towards the Ninth Summit changed, regardless of whether it was true or not. This change was not due to them coming into contact with the Ninth Summit, but due to them avoiding it. When they saw Che, even those who had never seen Su Ming before could recognize with just one glance that the young man with a scar on his face sitting beside Che was the Ninth Summit's Su Ming. The Su Ming who could fight against Sima Xian and charge in a Northern Frontier Tribe without a single scratch on him. Su Ming sat calmly on the puppet beast's back with his eyes closed. He did not want to waste even a single moment to let his body gradually get used to the weight of the 16 ice hoops. He was confident that once he could walk and fly as usual, then once he took off the ice hoops, his speed would become slightly faster. He had been thinking recently that he could not place all the ice hoops on his legs. If he did, he would not be able to coordinate his movements. Once he got used to the weight, he would add the ice hoops on other parts of his body to achieve a form of balance. It's a pity that Sky Miss Shaman Hunt is too short. There's less than 2 months left. As Su Ming closed his eyes and sank into his thoughts, Che's expression remained the same as ever. He was completely unbothered by the people they met on the way, avoiding them and paying attention to them, or the occasional faint sounds of discussion. However, he remained vigilant and would occasionally look around him. If anything bad happened to Su Ming, he would immediately rush out and stand in front of Su Ming to protect him. A hint of excitement appeared on by Su's face as she followed by Su Ming's side. It had been a long time since she had run into this sort of situation where all the people on the way avoided her and would occasionally observe her. This sort of thing would only happen when she was with Sima Xian. Yet he did not expect that such a thing would happen even when he was by Su Ming's side. Most importantly, although it looked the same, it was actually 2 completely different feelings. When he was with Sima Xian, the gazes that looked at him were filled with respect, envy, and respect for Sima Xian. Even if they did make way, they would do so respectfully. As for Sima Xian, he would smile and nod in response. As for her, she had to smile beside Sima Xian. She had to maintain the same demeanor as Sima Xian and face everyone with a smile. At first, she thought it was a good feeling, but once there was a comparison, however, the current situation was different. The gazes that were cast towards him were filled with hesitation and reluctance to provoke him. The people who avoided him were mostly not out of respect, but because of the rumors that had spread in the Ninth Summit recently. Baisu did not need to force herself to maintain a smile. She could glare at the people who avoided her as they pleased, and if she was unhappy, she could even spit at them. This sort of feeling made her feel very relaxed. Compared to that, she preferred this way. As she thought about it, Baisu's gaze fell on Su Ming. When she saw him sitting down with his eyes closed, a smile appeared on her face. However, there was a hint of mockery in that smile, as if she had just thought of something else. The puppet beast was not slow. When dusk arrived on the 4th day, they could see a tribe formed by a large number of temporary tents on the vast expanse of snow before them. The tribe was very big, and there was a platform in the middle that was built with a large amount of wood. It seemed to be able to seat close to 1,000 people, and it gave off a majestic aura, giving off a leisurely atmosphere. There were a lot of berserkers in the tribe at that moment, and they were all moving in and out of the tents. There were also quite a number of well-built men in the tribe. All of them had extraordinary power, and they were patrolling the area with aloof expressions. These people's clothes were clearly different from those of the people going in and out of the tribe to trade. There was a symbol of the sun rising from the sea on their clothes. It was a very unique mark, and it would be remembered clearly by all those who saw it, because the sun rising from the sea was blood red, and it was as if a wave of murderous aura was crashing into their faces. There were also some strange buildings around the tribe. These buildings looked like sharp swords that were pierced into the ground. However, these swords were so big that they looked like ships. They were about 1,000 feet tall, and they stood tall in the area. There were a lot of them, and if anyone counted them, they would find that there were 18 of them. The arrival of Su Ming and the others instantly caught the attention of the people in the area due to the appearance of the puppet beast. 3 of the patrolling people immediately flew into the air and charged towards the incoming puppet beast. The 3 patrolling guards closed in quickly and stopped before the puppet beast. They looked at Su Ming and the others, and their eyes were cold and aloof. There was a faint hint of hostility in them as they swept their gazes across the puppet beast, as if they were observing it in detail. One of them even looked towards Ziche first. Then he brought out a beast skin scroll from his bosom and opened it to read through it. Western Sea Clan's auction hall welcomes Ziche from the second summit of Freezing Sky Tribe. You must also be missed by Su from the 7th summit. The person examining the beast skin scroll lifted his head and a smile appeared on his face. He wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed towards Ziche and Bai Su. As he spoke, his gaze swept past Su Ming, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, and a hint of hesitation appeared on his face. Ziche narrowed his eyes. He was not surprised that Western Sea Clan knew his name. This time, aside from the items being auctioned, there was another reason why the 2 great clans held a cross-auction. It was to give them a chance to observe each other. The other party would definitely have made detailed preparations before they came. It was only natural for them to recognize Ziche and Bai Su. You flatter me. How should I address you? Ziche wrapped his fist in his palm and returned the greeting. With just one glance, he could tell that the person holding the beast skin was the leader of the 3. That person was not weak and was around the middle stage of the Transcendence Realm. The 2 people beside him were in the early stage of the Transcendence Realm. I don't have much of a reputation in Western Sea Clan. Brother Ziche, you won't be too interested in knowing about me. The auction will be held tomorrow. Brother Ziche and Miss Bai Su, please come with me. I'll bring you to your lodgings to rest for a while. The man holding the beast skin smiled faintly. As he spoke, a glint appeared in his eyes, and he looked towards Su Ming. But you look unfamiliar. If you don't have an invitation, you can't step into this place. As he spoke, the expressions of the 2 people beside him turned even colder, and they looked towards Su Ming. Ziche frowned and took a step forward. He was just about to speak when Su Ming opened his eyes. Su Ming opened his eyes, and they were calm. He looked towards the 3 people in front of the puppet beast, then lifted his right hand and swung it in the air. Immediately, the invitation turned into a long arc and flew towards the person holding the beast's skin. That invitation was too quick. As it flew out, it stirred up a whistling sound as if it had sliced through the air, causing the expression of the man holding the beast's skin to change. He quickly retreated, but before he could even take 2 steps back, the invitation had already closed in on the center of his brows. It did not stop for even a single moment, and by the looks of it, it wanted to pierce through the center of his brows. Just as the man holding the beast's skin's pupils shrank and he retreated, a powerful presence erupted forth from his body. Black mist surrounded his body and turned into an armor that was slightly similar to Su Ming's divine general armor, but the details were different. Even so, that armor was still the true divine general armor. The instant it appeared, a mighty pressure spread out, causing the man's hair to move without wind, but there was still shock on his face. because the invitation suddenly stopped 3 inches away from the center of the man's brows, even though it was traveling at such a high speed. It floated there unmoving, as if all the preparations the man holding the bee's skin had made were completely useless. Even if he was not prepared, even if he just stood there without moving, the invitation would still not be able to harm him. With a dark expression, he looked towards Su Ming, who was looking at him calmly from the puppet beast. The instant their gazes met in midair, a bang instantly rang out in the man's head. He staggered and took a few steps back. All of this happened in an instant. It was so fast that the 2 companions beside him didn't even have time to react. Only now did anger appear on their faces, but they were also shocked by the speed of the invitation. It was an impact that shocked them to the core. Ziche was also shocked. He did not expect that this person who came as a normal person would be a divine general. Either this person truly did not have any reputation in Western Sea Clan, or he had intentionally hidden his identity and was secretly observing all the Freezing Sky Clan disciples who came to this place in the patrolling team. It was a pity that he ran into Su Ming. "This is the invitation," Su Ming said calmly, his words neither too fast nor too slow. The man holding the beast's skin's face was pale. After a moment of silence, he did not immediately take the invitation. Instead, he wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. "I am Ao Chun Tai of Western Sea Clan. How should I address you?" "I am Su Ming of the 9th Summit," Su Ming answered unhurriedly without hiding anything. Ao Chun Tai's expression changed, and he cast Su Ming a few scrutinizing glances. He was just about to speak when a middle-aged man walked out of one of the dozens of tents on the ground that were decorated with golden pictures. That man was dressed in a purple robe. His face was fair, and his eyes were like lightning. With one move, he stepped into the air, and before he even arrived, his laughter had already traveled into the air. "I see. So you're from the 9th Summit. Chun Tai, please leave. I will personally receive you from the 9th Summit. I've recovered a little. I'll be writing the chapter 1 wrote yesterday over the next few days. Please recommend me. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation." Chapter 307. Ao Chun Tai took a few steps back and bowed respectfully towards the approaching man in purple. "Greetings, clan elder." The 2 companions beside him also had respectful expressions on their faces as they bowed in greeting. A smile appeared on the purple-robed man's face. As he walked forward, he stepped on the air and arrived before the puppet beast. He did not look at Ziche or Bai Su, but instead looked at Su Ming and nodded with a smile. "Are you Senior Tian Xiezi's new disciple?" Su Ming's expression remained the same. His gaze fell on the purple-robed man. With just one glance, he could tell that this person was not in the Transcendence realm, but a powerful berserker in the Bone Sacrifice realm. That was Su Ming's personality. If the other party was polite, he would rarely act in a domineering manner, even if he could not get up at that moment. With just one thought, the puppet beast beneath him rapidly shrank and turned into a ball of black smoke that covered the area below Su Ming's waist. That black smoke rapidly gathered together, and after the span of a few breaths, the puppet beast disappeared. Su Ming stood in midair. He looked normal, but in truth, he was still sitting cross-legged. The legs that were exposed were formed by the phantom fork. This meant that the phantom fork puppet had turned into his legs and was supporting him so that he could walk like a normal person. "My master is indeed Tian Xiezi." Su Ming wrapped his fist in his palm towards the purple-robed man. When the purple-robed man saw the puppet beast shrinking under Su Ming's body, a strange light appeared in his eyes. "Looks like the rumors I heard about the 9th Summit and Northern Frontier Tribe are true. The Phantom Fork puppet is unique to Phantom Dea's tribe. It's difficult for outsiders to get their hands on it." Su Ming smiled faintly and did not speak. "Brother Su, since you're Tian Xiezi's disciple, then you're in the same generation as me. Brother Su, I am Chong Yi. Please." The purple-robed man spoke with a smile and moved to the side. "Brother Chong, please." Su Ming smiled and wrapped his fist in his palm. The 2 of them moved forward at the same time. With just one step, the purple-robed man immediately moved 400-something feet forward. He did not even need to turn his head back to know that Su Ming was 200-something feet behind him. His expression remained the same, but he could not help but form an accurate judgment of Su Ming's level of cultivation in his heart. With his level of cultivation, he could naturally tell that Su Ming was not hiding his speed. In fact, Su Ming was indeed much slower than him. More importantly, he could see the black mist that was formed by Phantom Dei's tribe's puppets surrounding Su Ming's legs. It was clear that Su Ming could increase his speed slightly. This person is so arrogant. He actually transformed the puppet into a pair of legs, while he himself is still sitting cross-legged. The purple-robed man smiled faintly and did not pay too much attention to it. Instead, he slowed down and waited for Su Ming for a moment. When Su Ming was beside him, he moved forward once again. "Brother Su, your hobbies are rather unique. I've never seen such pleasure before." As they moved forward, the purple-robed man smiled at Su Ming and swept his gaze past his legs. Su Ming shook his head and said with a smile, "Brother Chong, I've embarrassed myself in front of you. It's not convenient for me to get up. Please forgive me." Ziche remained by Su Ming's side with a calm look on his face as he continued following Su Ming. Bai Su was originally the same. She was looking around curiously, but when she heard the purple-robed man's words, she frowned. But when she saw that Su Ming was not bothered by it, she did not speak. "Oh, it's not convenient for you to get up? Could it be that the cultivation method you're practicing has caused your legs to become handicapped?" A surprised look appeared on the purple-robed man's face. "It's about the same." Su Ming nodded. "It's a pity, what a pity. But there's a sacred herb from Western Sea Clan among the items being auctioned this time. It might be of help to you, Brother Su." As he spoke, the purple-robed man descended from midair and landed on the snow in the tribe. Before him was a tent that was not too big. Clearly, this was the temporary lodgings he had found for Su Ming and the others. There was still a smile on his face, and he was just about to speak. Yet before he could finish speaking, a shocking boom suddenly came from beside him. That boom shook the ground so much that it looked as if it was trembling, causing the snow on the ground to fly up to a height of 10 feet. It was as if there was a wave of impact sweeping through the area with the spot as its center. The tents around them were also torn apart viciously. Almost all the people in the tribe looked over swiftly. The purple-robed man's expression changed drastically, and disbelief appeared in his eyes. He looked at Su Ming and was momentarily stunned. He saw the muffled booms coming from the instant the legs formed by Su Ming's puppets landed on the ground. That feeling was as if a towering mountain had descended from the sky and crashed into the ground, causing the ground to tremble and stirring up violent gusts of wind that scattered in all directions. He also saw that the instant Su Ming's legs landed on the ground, they turned into a large amount of black smoke, as if they could not withstand the powerful force. As they spread out, they revealed Su Ming, who was sitting cross-legged and meditating within, causing his body to fall. And with another boom, he sat down on the ground. The purple-robed man sucked in a deep breath. He could clearly feel the ground trembling, and he could sense that the source of all this was the ninth summit's Su Ming. This person, just what did he bring with him? Why is he so heavy? The purple-robed man's pupil shrank. He remembered Su Ming's speed just now in his own judgment, but by the looks of it, his judgment was like child's play. Su Ming had a weight that was like a mountain on his body, and he had only managed to widen the distance between them slightly. If he took that weight away, then his speed, when the purple-robed man thought of this, he could not help but be stunned. Su Ming. He's Su Ming. The people around the area instantly turned their gazes towards the two booms and the tremors on the ground. Once they saw Su Ming sitting on the ground, someone immediately recognized him. He's Su Ming? That fourth disciple of the ninth summit? That's right. I saw him fight against Si Ma Xian before. Look, isn't that Ziche beside him? He's here as well. Interesting. I heard that eldest senior sister Tian Lan Meng, senior brother Si Ma Xian, and quite a number of powerful berserkers on the Great Frozen Plains list are here. The auction this time will definitely be interesting. Western Sea Clan's auction is held once every 100 years. How could it not attract people? I heard that this is just a normal auction. Once the auction ends, they'll hold a small-scale one. But those who can join that sort of gathering must at least have attained great completion in the bone sacrifice realm. Most of them are progenitors in the Berserker Soul realm. Within the temporary tribe organized by Western Sea Clan for the auction was a man sitting cross-legged in a tent not too far away from Su Ming. That man was handsome, and when he opened his eyes, his gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the tent and see what was outside. Su Ming, the man said calmly, but a brief flash of killing intent appeared in his eyes. He was Si Ma Xin. There were quite a number of temporary tents that surrounded Si Ma Xin's tent. The Freezing Sky Clan disciples in those tents all treated Si Ma Xin as their leader and listened to his orders. In another corner of the tribe was a rather secluded area. There were 8 tents there, and right in the middle was a white tent. There was a woman sitting in it, and there was a white wooden slip placed before her. She was gently stroking it with her index finger, and there was a constant frown between her brows. Behind her was a pretty girl who was combing the woman's hair. Occasionally, she would stick her head out to look at the woman. "Eldest senior sister, you've been drawing for a long time. Just what are you drawing?" The woman sitting there was incredibly beautiful. When she heard the question, she lifted her head. Just as she was about to speak, her expression suddenly changed, and she turned her head to the side to look in the direction where Su Ming was. "He's also here." That woman was Tianlan Ming. At the same time, there were people sitting in the 18 objects that looked like sharp swords that had pierced the ground and were shaped like swords but were also ships. They opened their eyes and looked in the direction where Su Ming was. Most of the people who were able to sit on the 18 ships were old men. When they looked over, shock appeared on their faces. The 2 booming sounds had attracted the attention of the entire tribe. Su Ming frowned. With one thought, the black mist that was the puppets gathered around him once again and covered the area below his waist. Then, they slowly propped him up, making him look as if he was standing up from the ground. "I'm sorry. There's something wrong with my body. I can't really control it. Is this my temporary residence?" Su Ming put on an apologetic look towards the purple-robed man who was staring at him blankly not too far away. The purple-robed man took a deep breath, and his gaze as he looked at Su Ming immediately changed. He wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. "Brother Su, you've misunderstood. Of course, this isn't your residence. Not only is this place simple, it's also noisy. Brother Su, this way please. The northern part is empty. It's much quieter there, and it's suitable for you to train there. After all, the auction this time will last for a few days. Brother Su, this way please." A cordial look appeared on the purple-robed man's face. It was an attitude of respect towards powerful warriors and people of equal status. It might not have seemed much different from before, but anyone with a discerning eye could still see the slight differences. "If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Chong." Su Ming fell into a moment of pensive silence before he nodded with a smile. Under the purple-robed man's lead, the crowd walked through the tribe. All the Freezing Sky Clan members who saw Su Ming seemed to be hesitant, but most of them smiled and nodded towards him. When they arrived at the northern part of the tribe, they found that it was much quieter. There were not many tents there, and most of them were quite far away from each other. "This place is suitable for you to train. Brother Su, if there's anything you need, you can tell us now. If you don't have anything in mind and have a sudden thought, you can look for a patrolling Western Sea Clan disciple. We'll try our best to satisfy your needs." The purple-robed man smiled and wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. "Thank you, Brother Chong. Everything's fine for now," Su Ming said with a smile. "If that's the case, then I'll take my leave. I'll have someone send you the pictures of the items to be auctioned later. Brother Su, you can take a look first. Of course, the items in there are just a portion of the items to be auctioned. There are some that were added recently, and we didn't have time to add them in." The purple-robed man smiled and nodded towards Su Ming before he wrapped his fist in his palm and left. Ziche had already brought out some tent from his bag and set them up on the empty ground. There were 2 tents, and one of them was for Su Ming and Bai Su to stay in. As for Ziche, he did not think there was a need for them. The entrance to Su Ming's tent was where he would guard and meditate. What do you think will be auctioned off? I'm excited just thinking about it. I won't say any more. To be continued. If you like this work, please come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 308. Su Ming sat cross-legged on a bee skin spread out on the snow in his tent. The bee skin blocked off the cold from his snow, causing those who sat on it to not feel too cold. There was also a brazier burning bright red in the tent. Due to the heat from the brazier spreading out, the snow on the ground was rapidly melting. Once all the snow melted, the tent would be filled with warmth. As the crackling sounds from the brazier echoed in the area was quiet. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he sat cross-legged, and a cold sneer appeared on his lips. He had intentionally made the phantom puppet crumble so that he would fall on the ground like a mountain, stirring up a huge boom. With this method, he would make the people from Western Sea Clan fearful and not dare to be negligent, which was why he obtained his current lodgings. It was not that Su Ming was petty and wanted to be calculative with them, but that he was no longer representing himself when he went out. When he mentioned his own name, he would usually mention the Ninth Summit as well. He was a member of the Ninth Summit, and his dignity was also the Ninth Summit's dignity. If he truly stayed in the crowded and noisy tribe, then the people would look down on the Ninth Summit. Su Ming would not accept this, especially when he was within Freezing Sky Clan's territory. There was simply no need for him to keep an overly low profile. Besides, there was another reason why Su Ming did this. He wanted to intimidate all those who were hostile towards him, especially Sima Xian and Tian Lanmeng. From a moment Su Ming received the invitation and remained silent for the past few days, he had already thought through this matter clearly. Due to his training, he still could not possess the intelligence of a monster, but if he could not understand it within 2 hours, then he would use 4 hours. If 4 hours was not enough, then he would use 1 day. After a few days of this, Su Ming understood the situation clearly. Perhaps Su Ming receiving the invitation had nothing to do with Sima Xian. Su Ming did not think that Sima Xian had the ability to ask Western Sea Clan to help him. Besides, the invitation was to invite the people from the Ninth Summit to participate in the auction. Su Ming fell into a pensive silence and did not think that there was anything off about it. However, if the Ninth Summit received the invitation, then with Sima Xian's reputation, he would definitely participate in the auction. Tian Lanmeng and the others would also definitely come. That was why Su Ming gave up on keeping a low profile. Instead, the moment he stepped into the temporary tribe where the auction was held, he used his own method to tell all the people in a domineering manner that he, Su Ming of the Ninth Summit, had arrived. He intimidated Sima Xian so that he would not act recklessly. Su Ming did not want to attack here. Compared to Sima Xian, he was more concerned about Sky, Miss Shaman Hunt. However, if Sima Xian did not know what was good for him, then Su Ming would have already replied to his previous actions. I'm sorry. As for Tian Lanmeng, Su Ming was also trying to intimidate her, but his goal was completely different from what he did to Sima Xian. Tian Lanmeng had a request for him. That was why the stronger Su Ming displayed his power, the more subtle their relationship would be. Because of that, this woman could become a temporary ally for Su Ming, and it would be convenient for him during the auction. It did not matter whether he was in danger or buying items. She would be of great help. After all, I don't have a lot of stone coins. Su Ming stroked his chin, and a smile appeared on his face. He did not notice that the days he spent in the Ninth Summit had caused some slight changes in his personality without his knowledge. For example, before he came to Freezing Sky Clan, he would not have been able to think of this plan. For example, the loss in Phantom Dea's tribe was also something Su Ming could not have imagined in the past. All of this was slowly changing because of his second senior brother, Hu Zi, and Tian Xie in the Ninth Summit. As Su Ming sank into his thoughts, he suddenly lifted his head. There was warmth coming from the brazier in the tent. There was no longer any snow on the ground, and the bee skins on the ground were also warmed up by the heat. It was as if they were in 2 different worlds compared to the snow outside the tent. Not long after Su Ming lifted his head, the sound of someone knocking on the tent traveled into his ears, and Ziche's voice traveled into the tent. "Uncle Master, Western Sea Clan has sent the auction catalog." Su Ming lifted his right hand and swung it. Immediately, the flap to the tent was lifted, and a gust of cold wind blew in from outside. It was already night outside, but with the snow on the ground as a contrast, it did not seem dark. He could even see snowflakes floating in the cold wind. It was snowing outside. Ziche stood respectfully at the entrance. His hair was covered in snow, and he was dressed in a long robe. In his hands was the auction catalog that was made from a thick beast skin. Once the flap to the tent was lifted, Ziche walked in and placed the catalog in his hands respectfully before Su Ming. He took a few steps back, and when he saw that Su Ming did not give him any more orders, he prepared to leave. Su Ming did not lift his head. He continued flipping through the pages of the beast skin catalog and said calmly, "It's cold outside. I should have let you enter the tent to keep warm, but your training method is related to the cold. This sort of weather is more suitable for your training. I've been observing your training for a long time, and I feel that it's still lacking. I suggest that you try listening to the sound of snow." Ziche's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. He stood there for a moment. Then, as if he had understood something, he bowed deeply towards Su Ming and left the tent. As he flipped through the pages of the beast skin catalog, a brilliant glint would appear in Su Ming's eyes every few pages. There was a cauldron drawn on the page he was looking at, and there were even a few wisps of smoke drawn on the cauldron. "Nameless barren cauldron," Su Ming mumbled. Those 4 words were written on that page. Since the Great Barren Cauldron is the tribal vessel of the Great Yu Dynasty, items that take the form of a cauldron are usually rare, but they also contain great power. This cauldron was obtained from a tribe in the land of the shamans. It is their tribe's sacred item, but someone brought it back to the land of the berserkers and worshipped it to Western Sea Clan. Beside the cauldron's name, there was a small row of words that briefly introduced the cauldron's origins. There was no mention of the cauldron's specific functions. After staring at the cauldron for a moment, Su Ming flipped through the remaining pages. His main target was the cauldron. That was why he did not pay too much attention to the other items, especially since the catalog did not contain all the items up for auction. There were still some items that were not recorded in the catalog. When Su Ming flipped to the last page and his gaze fell on it, a sharp glint suddenly appeared in his eyes. He picked up the page and looked at it carefully. The more he looked at it, the brighter the light in his eyes became. This thing, a glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He was almost certain that this thing was exactly what he was thinking about. It was a mountain rock that was about the height of a person. It was colorless and transparent, but within the mountain rock was a human-shaped object that was completely black. It looked as if it was sitting cross-legged there. That human-shaped object looked incredibly real. It had 4 limbs, 5 fingers, a head, and everything else. Su Ming's eyes were fixed on a human-shaped object's hands placed on its knees. The picture was a little rough, and he could not see it clearly. Even the details were not accurate. "This should be it," Su Ming mumbled. His welcoming of deities already had the 9th leg of a 9-legged spider. He was still missing 2 more. If this thing was truly one of them, then he would only be missing the python's tail scale for creating the welcoming of deities. However, Su Ming remembered that the tail scale was very different from the scales of a normal python. It was triangular in shape. Yet no matter what, if the small person in the mountain rock was what Su Ming needed, then it would be incredibly important to him. It was especially so when he remembered that the welcoming of deities was the only medicinal pill Su Ming had seen that did not require any sacrifices when placed on the door in the strange dimension. The more it was so, the harder it would be to successfully create it. Similarly, the more it was so, the more it meant that the power of the medicinal pill would reach an unbelievable level. It might even surpass spirit plunder. Su Ming looked at the beast's skin and closed it slowly. The auction this time is really interesting. Su Ming rubbed the center of his brows and fell into deep thought. Before long, as Su Ming was still immersed in his thoughts, the flap of the tent was suddenly pushed open, causing a gust of cold wind to blow into the tent. Su Ming did not even need to lift his head to know that there was only one person who could enter without Ziche stopping them. Su Ming, I can't sleep. Bai Su was dressed in a white leather robe. Her hair fell down her shoulders as she yawned and walked to Su Ming's side. Su Ming ignored Bai Su. His eyes were still half closed as he thought about the auction. Su Ming, you're deaf. You're mute. You're always like this. I can't sleep. You have to talk to me, or else I won't let you be quiet. Bai Su glared at him and walked towards Su Ming. You're the one who insisted on coming. Su Ming's face was calm as he cast Bai Su a glance. I don't care. I can't sleep anyway. I want to go out and look at the snow, Bai Su said with a thought in her head. Su Ming looked at Bai Su and, after a moment of silence, he asked unhurriedly, You want to look at the snow? That's right. I want to look at the snow. Come with me. Bai Su twirled her hair and smiled at Su Ming. Sky Mist Shaman Hunt is almost here. It's time to end things, Su Ming mumbled. Bai Su could not hear his voice. Only he knew clearly that he needed to make a decision. All right. Su Ming stood up and walked towards the tent's flap. Once he opened it, he saw a silver land under the night sky. The snow on the ground shone with a silver light. When he looked at it, he could not see the end of it, but it also gave Su Ming a sense of familiarity. Let's go, Su Ming said softly. He waved his hand to signal Ziche, who was about to get up, not to follow him. He walked forward with the wind and snow blowing against his face. Bai Su quickly followed behind Su Ming with a smug look on her face. During the past few months, she had entered that strange dream many times, but it was a blurry dream and there were many things that were not clear. She wanted to know the story of the girl Su Ming had met who looked exactly like her in the past. At that moment, she did not know that her unintentional action had caused the battle between Su Ming and Sima Xin to reach a new height for the Berserker Seed. Sima Xin wanted to leave Bai Su's figure in Su Ming's heart. He wanted to use that resemblance to make a thought form in Su Ming's heart, then turn that thought into his own Berserker Seed through his relationship with Bai Su. What Su Ming wanted to do was the exact opposite. He wanted to turn Bai Su into Bai Ling, and he would pour his heart and soul into it. Then, the moment he walked out, the wind would blow past him without leaving a trace. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 309. The sound of the wind in the snow was like a song that echoed in the air to some people's ears. Bai Su was one of them. She tightened the fur around her collar, and her exhales turned into white fog. The sound of the wind was also not a whimper to some people, but a faint sigh that belonged to someone else. Su Ming was one of them. He walked on the snow and stepped on the snow. He listened to the sound of the wind, mixed with the creaking of the ground as he walked forward. The two of them did not walk quickly. They did not speak to each other. They walked into the snow and gradually left into the distance. The wind was strong, and the snow was not light. Large amounts of snow fell from the sky and landed on their shoulders, on their robes, and on their hair. After a long while, Bai Su's gentle voice traveled into Su Ming's ears. You walked in the snow like this with her in the past, didn't you? In the end, you still asked this question. Su Ming did not stop. He continued walking forward, and there seemed to be a sigh in his voice. Shouldn't I be asking? Bai Su took a few brisk steps forward and stood beside Su Ming. She turned her head sideways and looked at him. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he spoke softly. There was nostalgia in his eyes. She and I walked together like this many years ago. Bai Su lowered her head and asked softly, Are we really that similar? Very similar, except for some details. Su Ming's voice floated in the snow. Is it because of this? Bai Su stopped and brought out two items from her bosom. Right before Su Ming's eyes, she hung them on her earlobes. A smile appeared on her lips as she looked at Su Ming, who had turned his head around. The moment Su Ming saw the earrings hanging from Bai Su's earlobes, a shudder ran through his body and a dazed look appeared in his eyes. Those earrings existed in his memories. They belonged to Bai Ling. Bai Su, who was wearing the earrings, stood in the middle of the night covered in snow and wind. Snow fell between the two of them. making Su Ming feel as if he had returned to the beautiful days when he was under Dark Mountain and all the things that had happened in the past. Su Ming, didn't you say you were going to take me in circles? A shy look appeared on Bai Su's face, but she did not lower her head. Instead, she looked at Su Ming and spoke gently. The moment he said those words, Bai Su could clearly feel that Su Ming seemed to have frozen in the snow at that instant. Even his gaze seemed to have frozen over at that instant. When she saw Su Ming reacting this way, Bai Su felt pleased with herself. She had been preparing for this day for a long time. Just a little more. Just as Bai Su was feeling pleased with herself, Su Ming closed his eyes and let out a soft sigh. When he opened his eyes, they were still as calm as before. He turned around and walked forward. Bai Su's eyes widened. She stomped her feet unwillingly and hurriedly followed up. At this very moment, in the corner of the temporary tribe where the Western Sea clan was holding the auction, Sima Xian sat cross-legged in a tent that was clearly much more luxurious than the others. His eyes snapped open, and a look of pleasant surprise flashed through them. It can't be wrong. During that instant just now, I felt the berserker seed springing up. That berserker seed is located on the snow plains outside the tribe. The powerful ripples of power coming from that berserker seed are stronger than all my berserker sons. That person is Su Ming. Bai Su, whether I can succeed or not depends on you. Sima Xian had originally given up on Bai Su's berserker seed. He believed that it would be difficult for him to succeed. That was why he brought up Ziche and wanted to use Northern Frontier to kill Su Ming. However, he did not expect that things would turn out this way. He hated Bai Su, but he did not dare offend her. He still needed her help to enter Freezing Sky Cave. It might have been a little long, and he had yet to see any results, but it was still a ray of hope. He had originally made up his mind that if he did not receive an answer to enter Freezing Sky Cave before the start of Sky Mist Shaman Hunt, and Su Ming did not become his berserker child, then he would have to join Sky Mist Shaman Hunt and get his kills first. However, as long as he could fulfill one of these two conditions, he would not have to join the battle and could instead focus on preparing to enter Heaven Gate. The sudden springing up that night instantly made Sima Xian's heart light up. He stood up and opened the tent's door to look at the land in the distance. Excitement and anticipation appeared in his eyes. Bai Su, you my benefactor. If you help me with this, then I swear that I will definitely take you as my wife. Sima Xian mumbled and clenched his fists. Once he took a few deep breaths, he calmed himself down and sat down cross-legged on the snow on the ground. Su Ming walked on the snow and the wind and snow. Once Bai Su caught up to him unwillingly, she would occasionally look at Su Ming angrily. No one knew what thoughts were running through her head. At that moment, she did not know that Sima Xian was watching them from the tribe in the distance and waiting anxiously. Time trickled by, and soon it was midnight. The moonlight in the sky seemed to have been shattered by the falling snow, but in the next breath, it returned to normal, giving off a feeling that it was a hallucination. It's late. If you don't have anything else, go back. Su Ming paused and turned his head around to look at Bai Su. Bai Su remained silent and did not speak. Su Ming walked down the path he came from as the wind and snow blew at him. Su Ming, Bai Su suddenly called out. The instant Su Ming turned around and looked over, Bai Su quickly walked out and hugged him, burying her head in his chest. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he lifted his hands and held Bai Su's shoulders. Bai Su lifted her head and looked at him. There was a complicated look in her eyes, along with an indescribable meaning as she stared at him. If we continue walking in the wind and snow, will we walk until our hair turns white? Bai Su mumbled softly. Her voice seemed to have traveled through time in the wind and snow, and when it fell into Su Ming's ears, grief appeared in his eyes. At that moment, Sima Xian, who was sitting and meditating beside a tent at the edge of the tribe, started trembling. The excitement in his eyes was almost as bright as the moon. His heart raced against his chest. He could feel the presence of the berserker seed growing stronger in the snow plains in the distance. He was just a little bit away from success. This feeling made him excited, and at the same time, he wanted to throw his head back and laugh out loud. Su Ming, oh Su Ming, your power may be increasing with each passing day, but you're still too confident. Bai Su's heart is still with me. She will do as I say and complete my will. In the end, you will still become my berserker child. Sima Xian looked at the snow plains in the distance excitedly and waited. Su Ming looked at Bai Su as he stood on the snow plains. Her voice echoed in his ears, and the grief in his eyes grew stronger. He closed his eyes quietly. Bai Su's expression became even more complicated. As she looked at Su Ming, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. Let's end things like this, Bai Su. You're not her. Don't make things difficult for yourself. Su Ming's hoarse voice traveled into the air. He opened his eyes, and at the same time grief appeared in his eyes, there was also pity. He lifted his right hand, and on his palm there was a ball of snow. Melt it on your palm. When the snow turns into water, you will still be you. You will not be her. Bai Su stared at the snow on Su Ming's palm blankly. After a long while, she did not know why, but as if she was possessed, she spoke softly. Su Ming, do you still remember our promise? The moment she said those words, Su Ming's hand trembled. But you didn't fulfill your promise. Bai Su mumbled and took a few steps back while looking at Su Ming. The snow on Su Ming's palm melted into water. He looked at Bai Su, smiled bitterly, and nodded his head. When Bai Su saw Su Ming acting this way, she suddenly felt a stab of pain in her heart. She did not dare face Su Ming and staggered backwards until she could no longer see him. Sima Xian's laughter rose into the sky in the tribe. He stood there, and there was an ecstasy that could not be hidden in the excitement on his face. He could clearly feel that the berserker seed on the snow plains had been completely formed. In fact, he could even feel a faint connection between them. That connection gave him a feeling that with just one thought, he could decide the life and death of the berserker seed. Su Ming, oh Su Ming, in the end, you still became my berserker seed. As Sima Xian laughed, he walked out and charged towards the snow plains. He wanted to see Su Ming's current appearance with his own eyes. As he moved forward, Sima Xian's footsteps came to a halt. He saw Bai Su staggering towards him as if she had lost her soul. With joy in his eyes, Sima Xian walked towards her. Su-er, I'm sorry for making you suffer. Sima Xian was just about to hug Bai Su, but she instinctively avoided him. There was a complicated look on her face as she remained silent. I originally wanted to meet the new berserker's son, Su Ming, but you're more important than him. I'll stay by your side and let him come greet us. Sima Xian was incredibly excited. He did not care about Bai Su's expression, but with a single thought, he ordered the berserker seed he could sense to come to him. Yet once he gave the order, Sima Xian's expression gradually changed from joy and excitement to hesitation, then from hesitation to puzzlement, and eventually, his expression changed drastically. Su Ming sat on the snow plains and looked at the snow in the sky. There was no longer a hint of sadness on his face, only calmness that made him look like a still well. He shook his head gently. Bai Ling, I gave her a chance. This is her choice. From now on, no matter how similar she becomes to you, even if they become the same person, it won't affect my heart in the slightest. It's over, along with my first change of heart. Su Ming lowered his head and lifted his right hand. With a wave, the drawing board appeared. It had been a long time since he last saw it, but this was the first time he flipped the drawing board over. He looked at his reflection on the drawing board and at the grass under his feet. In Su Ming's eyes, the drawing on the drawing board changed. His reflection lifted his foot in the drawing. The grass that was wrapped around his foot was lifted, and he jumped over it like the wind, not leaving a single trace behind. As the picture changed, a metamorphosis spread out from Su Ming's body. His hair floated in the wind and snow, and an ancient look appeared in his eyes, as if he had seen through something in the world. The snow around him seemed to be closing in on him at that instant. For the first time, snow fell from the picture of the Blood Moon and Dark Mountain on his body. Blood Moon and Dark Mountain snow picture. My first change of heart has ended. I'm begging for recommendation votes and monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 3:10. As the snow appeared on the berserker mark on his body, the presence of the metamorphosis became stronger. The berserker mark under Su Ming's robes seemed to have come to life and swam around his body. A whirlwind spread out from his body and blew the snow around him in all directions. Su Ming's hair moved without wind and gradually changed from black to purple. Compared to the white snow around him, this purple hue gave off an enchanting feeling, and there was also an indescribable strangeness to it. The berserker mark on his body and the 5 summits of Dark Mountain shone with a dark light on Su Ming's face like a totem. The grass, the trees, the houses that had spread down from Dark Mountain to his chest looked as if they were covered by a layer of snow. A blood moon appeared in the sky above the berserker mark. That blood moon was Su Ming's right eye. Even if his eyes were closed, it could not hide the red glare in his right eye that was as red as the moon. The falling snowflakes on the entire berserker mark looked as if they were alive, as if they had always been there. However, only at this moment did Su Ming gain the right to possess them and make them appear in the world, in the midst of the snow and wind. When the snow from the berserker mark appeared and turned into the picture of Dark Mountain's blood moon blizzard, Su Ming opened his eyes. The moment he did so, the blood moon in his right eye rose into the sky as if it was raging. He spread his arms wide and stretched them to his sides. "Dark Mountain," Su Ming mumbled. His voice turned into the moans of the snow and wind. No one could hear what he said in detail, but as his voice reverberated in the air, the world above Su Ming distorted, and a gigantic mountain appeared in the sky from Su Ming's memories. It was an incredibly majestic mountain. The 5 summits were connected together to form a mountain. The 5 summits were like the fingers of a giant, and when they were spread open, they looked as if they wanted to break the air. The dark mountain that appeared this time looked incredibly real. There was not a hint of an illusion about it. It was as if it had always existed in this place, as if it was supposed to exist in this place. The moment Dark Mountain appeared, a thick, oppressive feeling spread out with Su Ming as the center. Wherever it went, the wind and snow would freeze. Wherever it went, the earth would quake. Wherever it went, the weather would change. In the Western Sea Clan's auction tribe, not far from here, there were more than 10 boats that pierced into the ground like swords. There were some old men sitting cross-legged in each of them. Yet at that moment, almost all the old men opened their eyes, and their gazes that were as bright as lightning stared at the spot where Su Ming was. Such a berserker mark. Who is this kid? Tian Xiezi's disciple. It's just a normal mountain mark, and he can already cause the world to change. By the looks of it, his berserker mark is definitely not as simple as it looks. There's also something else. Divine thoughts echoed among the dozen-something ships. Su Ming's actions had caught the attention of the powerful berserkers from Western Sea Clan who had come to Freezing Sky. Silence. As the divine thoughts were exchanged, a cold divine thought that only they could sense, but no one else could hear, swept through the area like a storm. It's just the berserker mark of a transcended junior, and you're already acting this way? Sect Elder High, you're wrong. I don't believe that you can't tell that this child is a divine general, and his berserker mark is definitely complicated. The mountain mark alone is already shocking enough. A prodigy like this isn't worthy of our attention. Once the cold divine thought swept through the area, another divine thought that was clearly on par with it came from one of the ships. That cold divine thought let out a cold harumph. Even if it's complicated. Yet before that divine thought could finish speaking, it came to an abrupt halt, and the voice that spoke after that pause was filled with surprise. The source of that surprise was Su Ming, who was sitting in the middle of the whirlwind and had his arms spread out, spitting out 2 words as he sat cross-legged in the middle of the whirlwind. Tribe. The moment the word tribe left his mouth, it was as if a scroll painting had been unfurled under the gigantic dark mountain in the sky. A picture of Dark Mountain tribe's houses appeared in the sky with a shocking presence and in a manner that would make all those who understood Berserker marks tremble to their hearts. At that instant, if anyone lifted their heads to look, they would feel as if they could no longer tell the sky from the earth. It was as if they were looking at a mirage, but the plants, the houses looked so real that they could not be described with words. In the tribe where Western Sea Clan was holding the auction in the distance, Tian Lan Meng walked out of her tent in a corner. She was wearing the leather robe she had just put on and stood outside her tent with a strange glint in her beautiful eyes. She looked at Dark Mountain in the sky and at the clear image of Dark Mountain tribe, and she was stunned. This is his Berserker mark. More people walked out of the tents beside Tian Lan Meng and looked at the sky. The oppressive feeling that existed in the world could be felt clearly by all the Berserkers. More importantly, that oppressive feeling did not disappear in an instant, but grew stronger as time passed by. All the people who came to participate in the auction in the temporary tribe walked out of their tents and looked at the sky. Most of these people came from Freezing Sky, and some of them had witnessed Su Ming's battle against Sima Exin. They had also seen Su Ming display his Berserker mark. When they saw the strange sight in the sky, they instantly let out cries of surprise. This is Su Ming's Berserker mark. That's right. I remember that mountain and the tribe at the foot of the mountain. Only Su Ming's Berserker mark is like this in the entire Freezing Sky clan. This is Su Ming's Berserker mark? The uproar grew louder and louder. As the people spread the news, numerous gazes turned to look at the sky. In the tribe, outside an ordinary-looking tent, there stood a man in black robes. His expression was calm, and he didn't even lift his head. It was as if no matter what happened in the surroundings, it wouldn't be able to attract his attention. He only stood there quietly and waited for orders to be given from the tent behind him. If Su Ming was there, he would definitely be able to tell with just one glance that the man in black's actions were somewhat similar to Ziche's, because they were the same type of people. Interesting. Uncle Chun, I didn't expect there to be someone like this in Freezing Sky Clan. A voice with a hint of laughter came from the tent. As the voice spoke, a gust of wind blew past and lifted the snow on the ground, lifting a corner of the tent. That gust of wind saw everything within the tent and disappeared inside, never to come out again. The tent did not look big, but it was incredibly big inside. It was like a palace. There were 12 men dressed in the same clothes as the man in black, standing around the tent quietly. These people had their heads lowered like statues, but each of them had a presence that surpassed the transcendence realm and belonged to those in the bone sacrifice realm. In fact, there were some among them whose presences were so strong that even a normal berserker in the bone sacrifice realm would find it difficult to compare to them. At the center of the tent, that had its own dimension, was a table. A man dressed in a long green robe with a black dragon embroidered on it was holding a wine cup and taking a sip from it. The young man did not seem old, but when he opened his eyes, there was a threatening, awe-inspiring presence about him. There was a unique presence about him, and that presence belonged to someone who stood above millions of people. With one word, he could stir up a disaster. With one word, he could turn countless tribes into ashes. With one word, he could kill most of the people in the land of South Morning. It was a presence that gave off an air of supremacy. Even if that presence was not too strong and was still in its embryonic form, it was slowly manifesting. Perhaps one day, he would be able to truly announce this presence to the land of South Morning. Second young master, this person has a unique status. He belongs to Freezing Sky Clan, but he also doesn't belong to Freezing Sky Clan. An old voice came from across the young man. On the other side of the table was an old man with white hair who was drinking wine with a young man. That old man's voice was hoarse. He sat there dressed in a long white robe, and there were 8 white clouds embroidered on his sleeves. If anyone in Freezing Sky Clan who was familiar with Heaven Gate saw those 8 white clouds, their hearts would definitely tremble, and they would immediately kneel down to worship him, because those 8 white clouds meant that this person came from the 8th layer of Heaven Gate. There were 9 continents in Heaven Gate, and the 8th layer was an incredibly high level. All the people who could stay there could make freezing sky tremble with just a stomp of their feet. Oh, the young man put down his wine cup and smiled at the old man. At that moment, besides the people in Western Sea Clan's temporary tribe who were paying attention to the strange sight in the sky, there was another person who was standing on the snow plains outside the tribe. Sima Xian's expression changed drastically when he was enveloped by the oppressive feeling coming from Su Ming. He grabbed by Su and roared madly with bloodshot eyes, as if he was hysterical. I've already succeeded. Why is this happening? Tell me, why is this happening? Sima Xian could not accept this reality. The thing he had desired for a long time and had even succeeded in doing had turned against him in such a manner. He was completely unprepared for this. It would have been fine if he had never possessed it, but he did possess it just now. The feeling of having it snatched away right after he possessed it made it difficult for Sima Xian to control his actions. Bai Su's face was pale. Her arms were held in a tight grip by Sima Xian. Sharp waves of pain shot through her body, but compared to the pain in her heart, the pain in her body was insignificant. She looked at Sima Xian, and a bitter smile appeared on her face. All of a sudden, she saw through the man in front of her. The handsome, gentle big brother Sima was now nothing more than a clown. Other than going crazy, he didn't dare to do anything. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Sima Xian felt the oppressive feeling. He saw Dark Mountain and the tribe in the sky, and he also felt Su Ming's presence rapidly becoming stronger. This made him want to go mad with regret. I'm sending you the first update, asking for monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 311. He regretted it, deeply regretting it. He regretted not giving up everything in the past and killing Su Ming beforehand so that he would not be able to enter Freezing Sky Clan in time. He regretted it, but no matter how he thought about it, he found that this was the only time he could have regretted his actions after all the times he had fought against Su Ming. Besides this time, he could not find any way to counterattack Su Ming. The first time they met in Freezing Sky Clan, the battle between the two of them had reached its peak. Even if he wanted to kill Su Ming, he was stopped. Even if he attacked forcefully, not only would he not be able to succeed, he would even bring a great disaster upon himself. This was something he could not understand at that time, but as he gained a deeper understanding of the Ninth Summit, he understood it deeply. After all, he was one of the few people who knew the details of what had happened in Northern Frontier Tribe. Sima Xian, you're hurting me. As Sima Xian descended into madness, an aloof voice reached his ears. That voice came from Bai Su's mouth. She looked at Sima Xian coldly. She had truly seen through this person. In truth, she should have seen through him a long time ago, but she did not want to. Her eyes were covered by a veil of love, until she met Su Ming. As they came into contact with each other, that veil slowly changed color, allowing her to slowly regain her sense of self. Slowly, she felt as if she had woken up from Sima Xian's presence. However, at that time, she was still in a state of half asleep and half awake. She was slightly hesitant and did not know what to do. She could not make up her mind. When she left Su Ming and stood before Sima Xian, she suddenly and completely woke up. As she woke up, a pain as if her heart was being torn apart caused her face to turn pale. Hidden under Sima Xian's cold gaze was her deep regret. Su Ming and Sima Xian were two different people with two different experiences. If Sima Xian could become a prodigy and have his name at the top for many years, then he was definitely not an ordinary person. Even if he was in an indescribable rage and madness, he could still instantly quell all of it. Even if that rage did not disappear and only grew stronger, because if the Berserker seed was not planted in him, then he would not be injured. However, once the seed was planted and a situation like Su Ming's happened, it would be the same as a disaster to Sima Xian. The rebound from the Berserker seed might even turn him into the person's Berserker seed. Even if the person did not know the great art of heartless Berserker seed, he could still obtain the one and only berserker seed in his life. To Su Ming, this one and only berserker seed was just a gust of wind in his life. But to Sima Xian, if this was truly the case, then it would be his everything. This was only a possibility. Sima Xian didn't know what would happen, and it was precisely because he didn't know that he was afraid. He was terrified, and he went crazy. Su, I lost control of myself. Sima Xian let go of Bai Su's shoulder. His face was pale. Thinking back to his actions just now, he regretted it once again. Although Bai Su had failed, she was still useful to him. She could even be said to be one of the few life-saving straws he had left. Su, take me to see your father. Ask him to help me. When Sima Xian saw the coldness in Bai Su's eyes, his heart began to thump. Su, I was wrong just now, but you don't know why I did this, because once Su Ming's level of cultivation increases this time, the moment he walks out will be the moment I die. This is the first time I failed with the great berserker seed, and the consequences will be unbearable. Perhaps from now on, I can only be Su Ming's puppet. Su, I lost control of myself because of these things. Bai Su fell silent. Her eyelashes fluttered lightly, and she closed her eyes. Once she did so, killing intent flashed briefly in Sima Xian's eyes, but he immediately hid it away. He turned around swiftly and looked towards Su Ming, at the spot where the oppressive feeling was the strongest. There's another way. I can use this chance to kill Su Ming. Once I kill him, everything will be solved. Yet Sima Xian hesitated. Before the incident at Northern Frontier, he was still somewhat confident that he could kill Su Ming, but the incident at Northern Frontier made him understand clearly that there was already a difference between him and Su Ming. He did not have the confidence to win against Su Ming. It was especially so if he engaged in internal strife right before Western Sea Clan and Freezing Sky Clan. If that happened, then what awaited him would be an incredibly severe punishment. Even if he killed Su Ming, then besides the severe punishment, he would also face the madness of the Ninth Summit. Under this sort of punishment and madness, even if Sima Xian betrayed Freezing Sky Clan, he would still have no place in the land of South Morning, unless he ran to the land of the shamans. What should I do? What should I do? Sima Xian trembled, and despair appeared in his eyes. Take this and return to Freezing Sky Clan. Bring it out under Heaven Gate. My father's disciples will come and get you. Sima Xian, this is the last time I'll help you. From now on, don't bother me anymore. Bai Su opened her eyes and brought out a wooden slip. She threw on the ground, then turned around and walked into the distance. Her back was bleak and lonely, and at the same time, there was also a sense of release. She wanted to see Su Ming, but she bit her bottom lip. Even if she bit it until it bled, she did not have the courage to face him. She could only choose to leave dejectedly. When she came, she was laughing and joking. Sometimes, she would look at Su Ming with a teasing look on her face, but when she left, she was dejected and listless, as if she had lost her heart and soul. She was like an injured little beast that only wanted to lick its wounds quietly. She knew that she had made a mistake that would never be forgiven. Fortunately, this mistake did not cause irreversible damage to the person who had appeared in her heart. She lowered her head and left in the snow. Behind her, Dark Mountain and the tribe in the sky formed a shocking sight. Su Ming's voice reverberated in the whirlwind formed by the vortex in the snow plains. Blood moon. The sky was about to brighten. It should have been dark, but under the illumination of the snow, it was only indistinct but not dark. As Su Ming spoke, a blood moon appeared in the sky above Dark Mountain, as if it was at the end of the sky. As the blood moon appeared, the oppressive feeling increased by a large margin. As it spread out, it turned into a whirlwind that shook the sky and earth. An increasingly stronger presence gathered around Su Ming's body, and it continued increasing and becoming stronger. Ziche was several thousands of feet away from Su Ming. He endured the pressure and continued retreating. He forced himself to retreat slower. He wanted to stay there and protect Su Ming. He might not have seen Bai Su, might not have known what had happened to cause such a change in Su Ming, but he knew that he was a member of the Ninth Summit, and Su Ming was a disciple of the ninth summit. That was enough. As Su Ming's presence became stronger in the temporary tribe within Western Sea Clan's auction hall, the divine thoughts from the dozen something ships started echoing in the air once again. This boy has such a berserker mark. He can be considered a prodigy, but does he really think that Western Sea Clan won't dare to attack us if he reaches his breakthrough right outside our tribe? Sect Elder High, don't act recklessly. This boy is Tian Xiezi's disciple. Tian Xiezi? I've never met that crazy person before. It would have been fine if you didn't say that, but if that's the case, I'd like to see just how powerful this Tian Xiezi is. That dark divine thought swiftly changed direction and turned into a piercing whistle that very few people could hear. It rushed out of the tribe, and like a bolt of lightning, it charged towards the windstorm that Su Ming had turned into with a loud bang. That divine thought was like a sharp sword that wanted to cut the whirlwind in half and kill Su Ming, who was within it, with just one slash. Almost at the instant this person's divine will shot out, but very few people in the tribe noticed it. The white-haired old man sitting next to the table in the ordinary-looking tent where the black-robed men stood silently. He looked at the young man sitting across from him and spoke slowly. Because he's from the ninth summit. The moment he said those words, his expression suddenly changed, and he lifted his head swiftly. At the same time, the young man also frowned. With that one frown, a mighty pressure instantly appeared on him. Almost the instant the two of them noticed it, the invisible arrow that was formed by that divine thought shot through the snow plains and appeared outside the whirlwind that was Su Ming. It was about to slash down on the whirlwind. Yet at that moment, an arrogant and untamed divine thought traveled forth from the air, as if it came from the world in the distance. It came from a ninth summit on the great mountain range of freezing Sky Clan, and that voice traveled forth with a roar like a raging wave that could overturn rivers and seas. Damn you! Which brat dares to touch my disciple? I'll kill your entire family, your entire clan, and you'll be reincarnated for all eternity. That voice was filled with an indescribably domineering air. The moment it appeared, it caused the divine sense sword that was about to slash down to tremble violently and collapse with a bang. It was as if it had been struck by that voice. At the same time it shattered, the scattered divine sense fell back, and there was an extremely horrified aura within it. The murderous aura contained within that voice shook the sky and earth. As it reverberated in the air, the scattered divine thought was swept up by that murderous aura once again and completely shattered. A shrill scream of pain traveled forth. A faint, shrill scream of pain rang out. At the same time, a red-haired old man trembled in one of the ships in the tribe. He opened his eyes and coughed out a large mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale, and even his hair began to rapidly wither. In the blink of an eye, he was completely bald. What was even more shocking was that after his hair withered, his flesh and blood also began to rapidly wither. In the blink of an eye, he was only skin and bones. If it was not because the jade plate on his chest that was carved with the image of the sun rising from the sea had suddenly shone with a powerful light, he would have definitely died. Cracking sounds reverberated in the air. The jade plate negated the power that came crashing towards him. Once it shattered, the old man coughed out blood once again. The look of someone who had just survived a disaster appeared in his eyes. His face was filled with terror and shock. During that instant just now, he already had one foot in hell. Tian Xiezi. The old man shuddered. I'm sending the second update, asking for monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 312. No one could hear Tian Xiezi's voice. It was the voice of a divine thought. Only those who had a certain level of cultivation would be able to notice it. It was just like how only a limited number of people in the tribe could hear it. Once the old man was punished for nearly killing Su Ming because he wanted to injure him, not a single divine thought came out from the dozen-something ships. It was dead silent. Within the ordinary tent, guarded by the men in black robes, was the young man with the black dragon embroidered on his robes. A strange light appeared in his eyes, and his breathing quickened. Tion Siezi, it's him. The old man opposite the young man smiled wryly and nodded. If I could use such a powerful berserker. When the young man said those words, he shook his head and took a big swig from his wine cup. Second young master, don't think about it anymore. It's impossible. As one of the 3 great berserkers in the land of South Morning, he will definitely not join the fight between the big tribes. Besides Western Sea Clan's Guru Li Long, there are very few people who know about the other 2, and even if they do, they won't tell anyone about them, because these powerful berserkers have the right to choose how they want to live. Take Senior Tion Siezi, for example. He's strange and sometimes crazy. There are less than 10 people in Freezing Sky Clan who know about him. Even in the great tribe of Freezing Sky, only those with the blood of the elder like you can know about this secret once they reach adulthood. That's why there are plenty of disciples and outsiders who have their own guesses, but most of them are negative. We wouldn't dare reveal his identity, or else once he leaves Freezing Sky Clan, it'll be difficult to invite him back, the old man said with a bitter smile. Even his disciples don't know about it. The young man was surprised. Besides him from Ninely tribe, the other disciples shouldn't know about this, the old man said softly after a moment of hesitation. A glint appeared in the young man's eyes. After a moment of pensive silence, he looked at the old man. Invite this person called Su Ming to join Western Sea Clan's secret meeting after the auction. I'll pay for whatever he likes. That's... If your brother knows about this, I'm just making friends. I sincerely want to be friends with Su Ming. I'm not asking for any help from him. Are there people who can stop me from making friends? The young man smiled faintly, but a freezing glare appeared in his eyes as he looked at the old man. The old man was silent for a moment before he nodded. When I was a child, I heard that thousands of years ago, 3 powerful warriors fought against the Grand Duke of the Shaman tribe. That battle, the young man mumbled, and there was a look of fascination in his eyes. At that moment, the windstorm continued howling in the snow plains, and it was growing stronger with each passing moment. Su Ming, who was at the center of the storm, could clearly feel his presence becoming stronger. Wind and snow, Su Ming mumbled. The instant he said those 2 words, an endless amount of snow appeared in the sky around Dark Mountain, the tribe, and the blood moon. The snow and the snow that originally existed in this world seemed to have fused together. It was impossible to distinguish one from the other. After the perfect fusion, what appeared in the sky was a picture of the wind and snow of the blood moon and Dark Mountain. The moment the picture appeared, Su Ming lifted his head and let out a long howl. The presence in his body increased exponentially, and the blood in his body started circulating rapidly. The power of transcendence rose swiftly in a shocking manner. As it rose, cracking sounds came from within Su Ming's body. It was as if his flesh and blood were being squeezed together, as if his bones were rubbing against each other. When the power of transcendence increased, eventually, a violent bang rang out in Su Ming's head. The moment that bang echoed in his head, Su Ming's level of cultivation reached a breakthrough from the middle stage of the Transcendence realm and moved into the later stage of the Transcendence realm. Almost the instant he moved into the later stage of the Transcendence realm, the picture of the wind and snow of the blood moon and Dark Mountain in the sky charged toward Su Ming like a picture screen that had been swept into the windstorm. As it distorted, it charged towards Su Ming along with the windstorm. The mountain mark was on his face, the red moon was in his eyes, the tribe was on his chest, and the marks of snow were flying all over his body. Su Ming's level of cultivation increased exponentially once again at that moment. The bone of sacrifice he had obtained from Han Mountain's ancestor in the past was rapidly melting and exuding a power that belonged to the Berserker tribe. It turned into Su Ming's power of transcendence and fused with his chi. As his heart thumped powerfully against his chest, that power spread to every corner of his body. Once his Berserker mark was completed, Su Ming's body went through a drastic change. As he became stronger, he still retained his original body shape. His level of cultivation continued rising, and from the later stage of the transcendence realm, he reached the peak of the later stage. He was only one step away from attaining great completion in the transcendence realm. Su Ming had a strong feeling that if he took this step and attained great completion in the transcendence realm, then he would be able to reach the realm that belonged to the powerful, the bone sacrifice realm. He would refine a piece of his spine into a true berserker bone, a berserker bone that only belonged to the ancients of berserkers, a berserker bone that had returned to their ancestors. Only by refining this bone could he be considered to have reached the bone sacrifice realm. If there came a day when he could turn all the bones in his body into those of the ancients of berserkers, then the power of his physical body would not be able to split the sky and earth, nor would it be able to pluck the sun, moon, and stars, but it would be enough for him to command the wind and clouds. If he could take another step forward and reach the berserker soul realm after attaining great completion in the bone sacrifice realm, then he could be considered one of the truly powerful berserkers in the berserker tribe. The road ahead was long, but Su Ming had a desire. Su Ming opened his eyes. The berserker marks on his entire body shone brightly, but there was a hint of regret hidden within his eyes. He had tried, but he was still a little bit away from attaining great completion in the transcendence realm. He could not take that step forward and could only continue accumulating power endlessly in the later stage of the transcendence realm. I know what I'm lacking. Su Ming stood up quietly. The moment he did so, the windstorm around him disappeared. The world returned to its original state, and snow continued falling from the sky. This time, Su Ming did not rely on his puppet beast to stand up, but on his real legs. As his level of cultivation increased, the strength of his physical body also increased exponentially. The 16 ice hoops could no longer restrain him. My berserker mark lacks life. I can't draw the people from the past in that empty tribe. I need a Sun song for my memories to surround my berserker mark and bring me home. Su Ming closed his eyes. In his head, he remembered the peaceful tribe that Tian Xiezi had brought him to, along with the old Sun Maker, the blind man who could not see light in that tribe. I should find some time to retrieve my son, Su Ming mumbled. He patted off the snow on his body and walked towards Western Sea Clan's tribe in the distance. Ziche was charging towards him from several thousands of feet away. When he saw Su Ming, the anxiety on his face eased up. As Su Ming smiled and nodded at him, he followed behind him and walked slowly with him. When the two of them arrived beside the tribe and entered, almost all the people in the tribe stood outside their own tents and looked towards Su Ming. They did not say anything, neither did much. However, when their gazes fell on Su Ming, all of them lowered their heads. Su Ming walked past them calmly and did not stop. He walked to his tent, bent his back, and walked in. The night passed by. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but the moment Su Ming walked into his tent, the sun rose in the distance and a new day arrived. Wind blew through the land, sweeping up snow and sweeping it through the tribe. This day would be the first day of the auction held by Western Sea Clan. After resting for 2 hours in his tent, Chong, he went to Su Ming's lodgings with a rather courteous but complicated look on his face. He personally led the way for Su Ming to the auction hall. Chong, he walked beside Su Ming and wrapped his fist in his palm to salute him. Congratulations, Brother Su. You've improved even more. Even if I'm only in the initial stage of the bone sacrifice realm, I still feel a little pressured when I face you. Su Ming smiled faintly and wrapped his fist in his palm in reply. He did not explain too much. Ziche followed behind him in silence. However, he would occasionally look around him, hiding his cautious gaze. The three of them soon arrived at the eastern side of the tribe. There was a gigantic building there. That building was in the shape of a ring and looked incredibly majestic. It could fit thousands of people inside. Right at the center of the building was a circular platform. That was the place to bring out the items to be auctioned. Besides the top floor, which was divided into a few individual rooms, the rest of the platforms were filled with tables and chairs. They surrounded the area, and there were already quite a number of people sitting there, waiting for the auction to start. The place was bustling with noise. Occasionally, people would arrive, and occasionally people would move their seats to look for people they were close to talk to. There were also quite a number of Western Sea Clan disciples patrolling the area, looking at all the newcomers coldly. The auction is about to start. Brother Su, please come to the 9th room at the top floor. It's reserved for you by Sect Elder by Zhong Hai. Chang Yi said respectfully. His respect was not only due to Su Ming's improvement in power and the pressure he brought to him, but also due to the news he had received that morning. Sect Elder Hai had reserved one of the rooms at the top floor for Su Ming to go to. After all, there were not many rooms at the top floor to begin with. They were all prepared for powerful berserkers in the Berserker Soul Realm. A normal person would not be able to enter. Besides, the rooms at the top floor were already full. The 9th room was an extra room that had been added early this morning. Adding a new room just for one person was something Chang Yi could not imagine. He might be from a different clan from Su Ming, but he still became even more polite and respectful towards him. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He did not refuse and nodded his head. Under Chang Yi's lead, he went to the top floor and entered the 9th room. Once he entered the room, Su Ming saw an incredibly beautiful woman with an incredibly alluring body and curvaceous body. She stood up from the chair by the side and smiled at him. That smile was filled with a unique charm, and it was filled with a unique charm. I am Zishan, my master, Haiyan Lai. I have received orders from my master to explain the items for auction to you, Brother Su. A barely noticeable frown appeared between Su Ming's brows. He did not know what happened last night, but he could tell that there was something strange about this person named Hai. He had reserved a room for him alone and even arranged for a disciple to explain and serve him. With his status as a sect elder of Western Sea Clan, this sort of action would be hard to understand. If he did not have a motive, then he must have a request. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he asked languidly, "Is that all?" The 3rd watch, and, that's all. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 313. First of all, the 3rd chapter was a supplement, not an outburst, but it was also written in a day, not with a draft, so it could not be considered an outburst, but could be considered serious. Second, the top 3 monthly votes were not guaranteed, but they still had a struggle. Even if it was a few minutes, a few seconds, or even a few hours, they still had a struggle. Please struggle. Please monthly votes. Please recommendation votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come to vote for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 314. Su Ming had already grown up. He was no longer the boy from Dark Mountain who was ignorant of everything. From the change in Dark Mountain to waking up from his dream in the land of South Morning, rising to power in Han Mountain City, his trip to the land of the shamans, freezing sky, and everything else, Su Ming's mind was rapidly changing and becoming more complete. He might still not be a monster, but he was no longer a greenhorn. If he had been in Dark Mountain, then he would have definitely chosen to ask for an answer straight to the point. If he had gone through the change in Dark Mountain and was in Han Mountain City in the land of South Morning, then he would have made a different choice. There was a high possibility that he would settle for the next best thing. Once he looked at the room and the woman before him, he would turn around and leave. He would search for a corner to join the auction and use this method of not fitting in with the crowd to crush all the other people's thoughts. Yet now, Su Ming's method changed once again as he went through the experience. He did not ask for an answer straight away. Neither did he choose to retreat and not fit in with the crowd. Instead, he used another method, as if he was trying to trick them, to find the problem through their expressions, gazes, and other minute details. Brother Su, what do you mean? When Zishan, who had an incredibly seductive body and the scent of orchids, heard Su Ming's words, her expression remained the same, and she smiled sweetly. Su Ming did not speak. Instead, he looked at the woman calmly before he turned around. Chang Yi, who had been leading the way, was momentarily stunned before he walked past him. Judging by Su Ming's actions, He was about to leave the ninth room. Ziche followed him silently. A glint appeared in Zishan's eyes as she remained in the room. She did not speak immediately, but instead waited for Su Ming to take half a step out of the room and look as if he was truly about to leave before she spoke faintly. Could it be that I'm a ferocious beast? Or else why would you choose to leave once you saw me? Her voice was very pleasant to the ears and gave off a pitiful feeling. It was also filled with an indescribable charm that made people want to continue listening to her. But Su Ming was different. He took a step out of the room and walked forward without turning his head back. When he took 3 to 5 steps out of the room, Zishan's voice traveled into his ears once again. Brother Su, please wait. Of course, that's not all. To express my apologies, Brother Su can choose one item from this auction, and my master will buy it for you. As Zishan spoke, she walked out of her room and looked at Su Ming with a smile. That smile on her face looked incredibly beautiful, and it gave off a feeling that made people's hearts pound. At the very least, Chang Yi's expression had already turned unnatural. Su Ming's footsteps faltered and a smile appeared on his face. He turned around and met Zishan's gaze, then walked towards the room. Zishan intentionally lagged behind him by half a step. Su Ming walked into the room and sat down on a chair by the side. Ziche stood silently behind Su Ming like a block of wood. He might have his eyes closed, but he was still as alert as ever. He had practically placed all his attention on all signs of movement around him. Zishan closed the door and walked over with a swaying gait. She sat down across from Su Ming and swept her beautiful eyes past Ziche, who was standing behind Su Ming, before looking at Su Ming. She smiled before she spoke. Brother Su, as expected of a disciple of the Ninth Summit, you have a follower with you when you go out. I can't compare to you in this. From his position, Su Ming could clearly see the center of the auction hall from the balcony by his side. At that moment, there was a ruckus down below, and there was an endless stream of people coming to the auction hall. He's not my follower. He's my disciple nephew, Su Ming said slowly. I see. I was wondering why you looked so familiar. Now that you mention it, I remember now. Isn't this the famous Ziche who's ranked in the top 10 of the Great Frozen Plains of Freezing Sky Clan? Zishan covered her mouth lightly, and a dazed look appeared on her face, as if she had just recognized him. Ziche was silent and unmoved. He was already used to this sort of ridicule. He had been embarrassed in the beginning, but now he no longer cared too much about it because he knew that the people of the Ninth Summit had moved him in a way that no other place could. When Zishan said those words, she looked at Su Ming as if she was trying to find something about him. But unfortunately, she did not see anything. Su Ming's expression remained the same. There was not a single hint of emotion on his face. He practiced the art of clearing his mind, and all he did was to clear his mind. If he was facing some old people, perhaps he would still be a little immature, but this woman would not be able to see through him so easily, even if he was already displeased. Su Ming closed his eyes and ignored the woman's words. He breathed calmly and waited for the auction to start. Bai Su had seen this side of him the most among the women she had ever seen. She had been angered by his disregard and tried everything she could think of, but to no avail. From this, it could be seen that Su Ming's demeanor was quite a huge blow to the woman. Zishan stared at Su Ming for a long time. This was the first time she saw this sort of expression on his face. It was as if he was treating her as a decoration, or perhaps it was as if he did not even care about her existence. It made Zishan swallow the words she was about to say. Brother Su, you're so gracious. After a long while, Zishan spoke once again with a hint of unwillingness to admit defeat, but what she got in return was still Su Ming closing his eyes and ignoring her. Zishan stared at Su Ming for a long while before she closed her eyes as well and no longer bothered with him. Because of that, the room was instantly filled with silence. Compared to the noise outside, it was as if they were in two different worlds. However, compared to Su Ming, Zishan still could not compare. She could not truly clear her mind. Instead, she would occasionally open her eyes and sweep her gaze past Su Ming, and a frown gradually appeared on her face. I don't believe that this person can remain so calm. He's definitely putting on an act. I've seen plenty of people who pretend to be profound. Zishan let out a cold harumph in her heart. Time trickled by in the silence of the room. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, muffled drum beats came from the platform at the center of the auction hall. The drum beats rumbled as if they were shaking the sky and earth. They reverberated in all directions, and each drum beat felt as if they were knocking on a person's body, causing all those who heard them to feel their hearts tremble. As the drum beats reverberated in the air, moaning sounds spread out abruptly. They were mixed in with the drum beats, but they sounded even sharper, as if they were stirring up the breathing of all the people around them as they charged towards the sky. The sound of the drums and the moaning instantly silenced the auction hall that could accommodate thousands of people. Everyone's gazes were gathered on the platform at the center of the auction hall. At that moment, Su Ming opened his eyes. He saw 9 burly men on the platform at the center of the auction hall below the balcony. They were using their hands to hit the bee-skin drums before them. At the same time the drums rumbled and connected together, there were 9 beautiful women in long white dresses beside the 9 burly men, but they were quite revealing. The 9 women held gigantic conches in their hands, and the piercing moaning sounds came from those conches. At the instant the sound of the drums and the conches reached their climax, the ground started trembling, and a neat crack appeared on the platform at the center. It started spreading outwards, and at the instant the men and women stood at the edge of the platform, a gigantic stone pillar rose from the crack. After the stone pillar rose more than 100 feet into the air, it slowly came to a stop. A murmuring sound that no one could hear clearly echoed in the surroundings. Shortly after, an uproar broke out from all directions. As the sound spread out, the sky above the gigantic open-air auction hall went through a shocking change. Ripples appeared in the bright sky, and as they spread out, they covered an area of several tens of thousands of leagues. Western Sea Clan. An ancient voice traveled forth from the sky at that moment. The instant that voice spoke, the area of several tens of thousands of leagues that was covered by the ripples turned into a vast ocean as more ripples appeared. It was as if the area of several tens of thousands of leagues was no longer Freezing Sky's land, but had turned into Western Sea Clan's ocean. The seawater was as tall as the sky, and the ripples that could be seen were formed by the flowing seawater. The ground where the auction hall was located had turned into the bottom of the ocean. A brilliant light appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He stood up and took a few steps forward to stand at the edge of the balcony and look outwards. He was not the only one who did so. At that moment, many of the people in the auction hall also stood up. When they saw the world changing, their expressions changed. This was not a simple illusion, but a shocking change that was incredibly real. Su Ming saw an endless amount of colorful branches appearing around the area that had turned into seawater. He also saw all sorts of fishes swimming about. Some of them were in groups, and some of them were alone. In fact, when Su Ming opened his mouth, a large amount of bubbles came out of his mouth and floated outwards. This is a rune that Western Sea Clan came up with many years ago. What do you think, Brother Su? Zishan smiled faintly and went to Su Ming's side. As she spoke, bubbles also floated out of her mouth, making it seem as if they really existed in the ocean. Those colorful ones are called corals. Zishan noticed what Su Ming was looking at, and she spoke with a light chuckle. At the same time Zishan's words rang out. In the center of the auction hall, the 9 scantily clad, beautiful women in white dresses who had been standing at the edge each took out a white scale and stuck it on their foreheads. Their bodies immediately floated up, and their bare feet instantly transformed into fishtails. They turned into 9 mermaids that swam around the auction hall. Their melodious singing could even be heard in the seawater, and anyone who heard it would become infatuated with them. As for the 9 muscular men, almost at the same time the mermaids swam around, each of them brought out a blue bee skin and pasted it on their bodies. Their bodies started distorting, and after a moment, with a muffled boom, the 9 of them turned into 9 ferocious sea dragons. They roared and swam about in all directions, fusing together with the mermaids' singing, turning into a shocking sight that shook the hearts of all those who heard it. Western Sea Clan's auction will be held once again in the land of freezing sky after a long absence of 100 years. At that moment, an old voice traveled forth from the stone pillar. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 315. When he saw the mermaids and sea dragons, Su Ming's pupils instantly shrank. That scene was somewhat familiar to him, and the memory of the black-robed man who had destroyed Dark Mountain appeared in his head. He had also cast a similar art in the end. He had brought out a beast skin to cover his body and turned into a ferocious beast. Brother Su, you must have heard of the beast transformation art before. This is an art that Western Sea Clan inherited from the ancients of Berserkers. You won't be able to find a single person who is not from Western Sea Clan in the entire land of South Morning who can use this art. A proud look appeared on Zishan's face as she spoke languidly beside Su Ming. Su Ming fell silent. As the old voice echoed in the air, the seawater above the stone pillar on the platform at the center of the auction hall distorted, and an old man's body appeared, standing there. That old man wore a long blue robe. That robe was so big that it covered the stone pillar under his feet. Some of the robe even hung down. His hair was also blue. If it was not because of the old look on his face, it would be difficult to tell his age at first glance. My fellow tribesmen from the land of freezing sky, I am Feng Xiaofeng of Western Sea Clan. It is my honor to be able to come here and host this auction. This time, Western Sea Clan has prepared a lot of rare items for my fellow tribesmen from the land of freezing sky. I'm not good with words, so I won't say any more. The first item for this auction. As the old man spoke, the 9 sea dragons circling around him stopped roaring. The songs of the 9 mermaids also gradually faded away. Only the old man's words continued echoing in the air. When he finished speaking, a mermaid immediately swung her tail towards him. Her hands had been empty just a moment ago, but at that moment, as a layer of water rippled between her hands, a purplish-black skull immediately appeared on her hands. She lifted it up, and as she did so, she swam around in a circle so that everyone could see that skull clearly. It was a skull. It did not look like it belonged to a berserker, because not only was it as big as a basin, there were also a few bone spikes on the skull that were shining with a cold, ferocious light. It was clear that this was the bone of a ferocious beast. In particular, there was a symmetrical gap between his eyebrows. It looked as if he had grown a third eye. With the appearance of the skull, a strong sense of oppression spread out in all directions. This sense of oppression was so strong that even the seawater seemed to show signs of solidifying. If that was all, it would not have been a big deal. The seawater around the skull also showed signs of freezing. As a mermaid swam around, it was as if a circle of ice had formed. Based on our usual practice, we will not give a detailed introduction to the first item. It will all depend on your judgment. The only thing I can say is that when this beast was alive, its power was equivalent to that of a person who attained great completion in the bone sacrifice realm. The starting bid for this bone is 100,000 stones, and the starting bid is 1,000 stones. The old man's eyes flashed, and his voice spread out like thunder. There were thousands of people in the auction hall, and many of them had arrived early in the morning. At that moment, when the old man's voice rang out, the hall fell silent. Perhaps there were some people who liked to make a ruckus in this sort of place and talk about it, but most of the people who came to this place chose to remain silent. The more valuable an item was, the fewer people would know about it. Besides, most of the people who were invited to this place were very independent, and there were very few people who would buy what others said. 110,000. A voice rang out from the crowd around the auction hall. The moment that voice rang out, quite a number of people immediately looked over. The person who spoke was a man, but he wore a bamboo hat on his head, so his face could not be seen clearly. This sort of attire was not uncommon in this place. 120,000. 130,000. Perhaps it was because someone had placed a bid, but gradually more and more people began calling out their bids. Su Ming stood in the ninth room and looked at the purplish-black beast bone with a calm gaze. "Brother Su, have you taken a fancy to this item? This beast bone is the only thing left behind by a powerful, ferocious beast with a cold attribute after it died. One of the clan elders of Western Sea Clan obtained this beast when he ventured out. According to him, this beast was trying to reach the Berserker Soul Realm, which is equivalent to the Berserker tribe's Berserker Soul Realm, but it failed in the end. It was burned by the freezing fire, and besides the skull, its entire body was reduced to ashes. The reason why this skull could not be destroyed by the freezing fire is because there is a wisp of the ferocious beast's soul hidden within it. If there's someone skilled in those strange arts who can nourish this bone, they will definitely gain something." Su Ming swept his gaze across the beast bone, and after a long while, he shook his head. 210,000. A dark voice rang out from within the auction hall. The person who spoke was the man with the bamboo hat who had placed the first bid just now. Once he placed his bid, no one else spoke for a long time. The blue-haired old man smiled faintly. 210,000. This item now belongs to you. Next, we'll be auctioning off the second item. This item is rather interesting." The old man's words came to a halt, and one of the sea dragons wandering around the area roared and charged towards the old man. Its body distorted and it turned back into a human. It lifted its arms high into the air, and a black stone blade appeared in its hands. That blade was very crude, and only the shape of a blade could be vaguely seen. However, its surface was filled with bumps and hollows, and there was nothing special about it at first glance. "Beast retrieval." The old man's voice was calm. Once it appeared, the people from Western Sea Clan immediately moved forward. With a swing of their sleeves, a ferocious beast that looked like a lion instantly appeared. That ferocious beast's eyes were bloodshot, and once it appeared, it lifted its head and roared towards the sky. But there was fear in its eyes. Just as it was about to retreat, the old man lifted the stone blade and pointed at the beast. The tip of the blade pointed at the beast, and it instantly let out a shrill scream of pain. Its body started trembling, and as the people around burst into an uproar, the beast's body turned into a puddle of blood. Even its bones melted, and a wisp of green hair flew out from the puddle of blood. The shadow of a small beast could be seen faintly within that wisp of green hair. The moment it appeared, it flew straight towards the stone blade in the old man's hand and fused into it before disappearing. Soul Separation Stone. That's a soul separation stone. How could someone be so extravagant as to use such a big soul separation stone to make a blade? Uproars rose into the air. Because of that, the appearance of the blade stirred up waves of sound. That stone had a great reputation, and its shape was very easy to identify. Its effects were especially rare, and only that stone could do that. That was why there were quite a lot of people who knew about it, but not many of them had actually seen it. That's right, this is a soul separation stone blade. I don't need to introduce this item too much. The starting bid is also 100,000. The old man smiled faintly and spoke languidly. 200,000, 250,000, 280,000, 300,000. Sounds of people shouting out bids instantly rang in the air, and the moment those voices appeared, the starting bid for the stone blade increased by several times. Su Ming stood on the balcony and looked at the stone blade. A glint appeared in his eyes, and he looked at the old man holding the blade. The old man's expression remained the same, and he still had a smile on his face. He looked very easygoing, but Su Ming could vaguely tell that there were some secrets hidden within the auction. In truth, it was not difficult to guess. Western Sea Clan had never tried to hide it. There were quite a lot of people in the land of freezing sky who understood the inner workings of the auction. However, this was the rule. Even if they understood it, they could not change it. What a trick! They're using the auction that happens once every century as an excuse to bring out quite a lot of valuable treasures to stir up the greed of humans. And from then on, as they bid for the treasures, they'll cause conflict. In fact, after every single auction, there'll even be killings. The person holding the treasures will be committing the greatest crime of murder. Even if he manages to avoid being killed, he won't be able to avoid the countless people who are after him. Once there's a chance, with this method, they can weaken Freezing Sky Clan's strength. Right now, Freezing Sky Clan is also holding the same auction in Western Sea, and their goal is the same. Su Ming shook his head. Even if he understood the goal of the auction, he still could not change it. Neither could he leave, because there was something he desired in this place. In the end, someone bought the soul separation stone blade at the price of 930,000 stone coins. Forget about the true value of the item and whether the person who bought it had profited from it or had paid a huge price for it. Based on how that person paid the stone coins in a hurry and left with the blade, perhaps what awaited him would be him running away again and again. I like the item I brought out this time, but it's a pity that I don't have enough money to buy it. The blue-haired old man let out a long sigh and lifted his right hand. This item was not given to him by the mermaids or sea dragons, but he had brought it with him. The moment he lifted his right hand, all the people's gazes gathered on him. In the old man's hand was a crane made of grass. Cranes are a strange beast from the other worlds. They're docile and are loved by the immortals from the other worlds. We can't investigate the origins of this crane, but it's clear that it's not an item from the Berserker tribe. I don't know the grass used to weave this crane, but the old man lifted his right hand and swung it forward. Immediately, the crane floated up, and with a gentle flash on its body, it turned into a real immortal crane. It flew around the area, and its graceful movements seemed to stir up soft sounds. As it flew, it swept its lifeless eyes across the area. The instant its gaze landed on the balcony in Su Ming's room, the crane shuddered slightly, but soon returned to normal and returned to the old man's hand, turning back into an item made of grass once again. There's an art not belonging to the Berserker tribe contained within it. From what I understand, this grass should be normal. It could turn into a real crane flying in the air because there's a god from the other worlds contained within it. It's also called doubt. If there's anyone who can understand it, then I will congratulate them beforehand. The starting bid for this item is still 100,000. The blue-haired old man's voice traveled through the air. A focused glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. When the immortal crane flew in the air just now, his divine sense had fluctuated slightly. It was as if there was also a faint divine sense on the immortal crane. That faint divine sense seemed to have noticed him. That was why the crane had looked at him just now. 500,000. A woman's voice traveled forth abruptly. That woman's voice was very gentle, but the moment she spoke, quite a number of people immediately recognized the owner of that voice. She came from one of the few spots in the crowd where there was no one around. There was a woman in white with long hair standing in a rather empty spot, and her voice was calm. She was Tian Lan Meng. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Qidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.